And welcome everyone to the Brownsville Independent School District Public Facility Corporation Board of Directors meeting. It is 5:30, June 21st. Let the records reflect that all board members are present. Item number 3, recommend approving the agenda of the Board of Directors meeting of June 21st with any corrections or deletions. Doctor?
Madam President, members of the board, item number, closed session meeting, personnel item number 35.
We're on the Board of Directors.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, because there's this one. Now we go to that one. If there's any corrections or deletions. No corrections?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Saavedra, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 4, recommend approving the minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of April 5th, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya, do we have any corrections on the minutes or?
Tonight's regular board meeting,
That's still on the.
we have none.
None?
Move
Do
to
I have a
approve.
motion? Motion by Ms. Peña. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Board of Directors meeting is now adjourned. We now go to the regular board meeting. We now call the regular board meeting to order. Ms. Peña, could everybody please rise for a moment of silence? We also ask everyone to keep the following student, former student from BISD in their prayers, Ezek Esteban Rodriguez, who passed away. Ms. Peña, could you please lead us on to the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Let the records reflect once again that all board members are present. We now go to item number 5, recommend approving the agenda of the regular board meeting of June 21st, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya?
Okay, Madam President, members of the board, on the regular board meeting agenda for closed meeting, personnel item number 35, pages 318 to 320 will be deleted from the agenda and backup. And that's the only one.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Peña. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Colunga. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 6, recommend approving the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 1st, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya?
None stated as printed.
Do we have a
Move to approve.
motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peña, second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 7, recommend approving the minutes of the regular board meeting of April 5th, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya?
None as stated.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
To approve.
Motion by Ms. Peña. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 8, recommend approving the consent agenda. The board has agreed to discuss the following items. All of the items below that are not called out will be approved by consent. The items that will be discussed, we do have presentations and discussion, which is item number 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, 25, 26, 32, 33, 34. I believe they also, do I have a motion for the agenda?
And if I may ask, 36 is just automatic, right?
35 is an automatic. That's the question that's at standing. 36. 36 also is just a standard. That will become a standard agenda item.
Please repeat at the very beginning, before the 13th item. Was 13
Well, under presentations, board members would like to discuss item 2, 3, 4, and 6,
So we were discussing
and
them
9.
all.
So we're discussing them all. So it's 13. You want for me to continue?
Okay.
13, 14, 16, 20.
Okay.
Got it? Are we going to change? I guess we need to change the order. Item number 15, you want to discuss item number 15? Go ahead and add item number 15.
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to ask this board to change the order of the day as well. Do we know when legal counsel will get here? Do we have an approximate time?
No, sir, he is flying in, and I understand it may be approximately 8:30-ish before he arrives, sir.
Okay, because item 14, I really would like to discuss when we have legal counsel. So we can either change the order of the day, or just downright skip it if we get there, and then give the council more time to arrive.
That's correct.
May I change, move to change the order of the day as well? Like to move number 14 and just bring it till after 26. I think that'll give council ample time to get here, if that's okay with you.
Not a problem.
Okay. So it'll be after 26 that agenda item will be discussed, number 14. You want to also go into, go ahead and discuss, move up the personnel matters right after the standing board agenda items, board calendar. We can go with personnel matters after agenda item number 10. Board calendars. Does everybody agree to that? In executive session.
Do any of those items require council present?
Yeah, we're probably gonna need the council present for that.
Well,
have a
I know that
question.
Ms. Longoria has a question on 32, 33, and 34, and it's,
So I
is
think we
it
need to,
for administration or is it for council?
it's for council, isn't it?
You could wait till, so you may want to wait for that.
Yes. Yeah, wait for
So
council.
we'll just go through the process of the agenda item.
Yes,
Okay, the only one
please.
that was moved was item number 14.
Yes.
So do I have a motion for item number 8?
I move to approve the consent agenda as recommended by administration, including the change order of the day.
Second?
Motion by Dr. Escobedo, second by Ms. Peña. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 9, Superintendent's Report, Conference Presentation. Item number 1, recognition of UTB-TSC robotics competition winners for regional and state competition. Dr. Montoya?
Okay, this is something we're extremely proud of. We have a group of students from Pace High School who were very successful in competition in robotics at a regional competition, and then going to state and literally becoming state champions against groups from all over Texas. So we're very fortunate and very proud of this group. Ms. Peña, if you will introduce this group, please.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Mrs. Presos Garcia, members of the board, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Chuck Rath, who is a science specialist, and he will be assisted by Dr. Greg Garcia, who will be making the presentation.
How do you do? Thank you, Ms. Peña. Madam Board President, Ms. Catalina Presas Garcia, Interim Superintendent and board members. I'm here to present the 2011 state winners of the regional and state robotics competition, and they're all from Pace High School. The robotics competition teams consisted of 5 to 8 students who built and programmed robots to navigate an obstacle course and perform pre-assigned tasks. Teams who won at the regional competition on May the 7th advanced to the state competition, which was held in Lubbock, Texas on May the 20th. First place regional winners include the teams of the Vector team, represented today by Eliud Rivera, Lawson Rab, the captain, and Estivel Rivera.
Thank you for bringing the robot.
You're going to demonstrate?
Can you demonstrate
Can
that
you
to us?
demonstrate it?
No, you can't.
You can't. You're just showing it to
Not
us today.
battery
Okay.
powered. It's not powered up right now.
No, it's computer.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Right.
Congratulations. It's something to be very
Congratulations,
proud of.
gentlemen.
We also have the Dream Team, also won at regionals, represented by Jesus Cavazos, Karen Gonzalez, the captain, Ricardo Jaramillo, and Eduardo Gonzalez.
Ms. Brown, do you have a camera?
Picture with us.
We'd like to go ahead and have the young men, before they leave, take a picture.
They're not. The whole group is going to.
It's very impressive. I've been to a national competition of robotics, and it's very exciting.
Our other third place, regional winners, was the third derivatives team, and it's represented by Alexander Garcia, the captain, Humberto de la Garza, Luis Favela, and Roberto Rodriguez.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Congratulations.
I also need to mention that there was special regional awards were given out by the judges based on special criteria. PACE teams were awarded the following. The Innovation Award went to the team TRICOM, and they're not here today. They're all seniors, and they've scattered to do what seniors do, is work and go to college and go attend to their jobs. The Regional Think Award went to Team Vector, which is represented here by Eliud Rivera, Rob Lawson, and Estivel Rivera. You've already met them. And one final award was the Special Judges Award that went to the Dream Team, represented by Jesus Cavazos, Karen Gonzalez, the captain, Ricardo Jaramillo, and Eduardo Gonzalez. I would like to conclude that first place regional teams went on to compete at the state competition in Lubbock, with the Dream Team in the third derivatives team placing first in a three-team alliance with a team from Austin. A team alliance is chosen by the top-ranking team members for the various team strengths which the members feel would help them win the state competition. Funding for each of our teams in the amount of $1,480 came from a grant through UTB TSC from the Texas Workforce Commission, which paid for their robotics kit, regional and First Tech Challenge registration, and then BISD provided funding for the travel and meals for the regional and state competitions. This was a great activity which allowed students the opportunity to work as a team and problem-solve real-world robotics issues, utilizing computers to program robotics activities. We would like to thank UTB, TSC, and BISD for their support in sponsoring this opportunity for our students, and we look forward to next year's competition. At this time, we would ask, could we get the kids to come in and get a group picture?
Yes, by all means.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may also come, sir, be in the picture with them.
Come on over here.
Here we go. Let me pass out. We were all at.
A little souvenir. You can build a robot and put this on him. I think he's super.
Congratulations.
Here we go.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations.
Everyone, I want to give you guys a little souvenir. I like robots, but I'm kind of scared of them. Because they can go. There you go. Congratulations. Congratulations. And here we go. Congratulations. It's okay, Coach are super too. You want to get that gentleman in the picture with you? He can come
All the way to the back, guys. All the way to the back. What's his name? There you go. Alex, Rick, Humberto.
Mr. Radliff, would you come to the photo also, please? Come on.
Yay. Congratulations.
Oh, Miss Centeno.
Thank you, great job.
Another souvenir. Collect them on the wall. That was that project.
Good job, Sylvia.
We now go to presentation of proposed vehicle purchase district-wide for the fiscal year 2010-2011. Dr. Montoya?
Madam President, members of the board, we did need to purchase some vehicles, but I'll have Mr. Garcia and Mr. Guerra explain the specifics.
Madam President, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, we are proposing the purchase of 2 Suburbans for the athletic department. We use these Suburbans to send students, coaches, and sometimes some departments use our vehicles for travel on school business. In determining whether we wanted to make this purchase or not, we looked at the use that we had for this previous year, and we found that if we had allowed the employees to use their own vehicle, we would have to pay mileage to them. In addition, we had many instances where we had 1 or 2 or 3 students that were traveling to a competition in a bus, and that can get pretty expensive. We found that this year, by utilizing the vehicles as we did, we were able to save the district about $72,000 in the vehicle use. By taking these additional vehicles, we'll be able to use them and not have to use a bus or pay mileage to coaches that are going to different meetings and what have you. And we'll be able to use one for each one of the high schools, and that's why we're proposing this purchase.
Madam President?
Go ahead, Dr. Sotelo.
This is just the purchase of the vehicles. Then there's insurance, liability, all of that goes with it. Is that an additional expense?
All vehicles are covered under one plan, ma'am. So there would not be an additional cost for the insurances. Of course, we still pay fuel, but I'd rather pay fuel on a Suburban than a 60-passenger bus.
Ms. Longoria, you had a question on that item?
Yes, ma'am. What account number are you paying for these vehicles? Is it the athletic account or local maintenance?
Local maintenance and is where we get the athletic fund from. It would be coming from the athletic fund.
Okay, and getting back to Dr. Zaveda's question also about the insurance, it's not gonna, you said it's included in the insurance plan. However, is there a limit as to how many vehicles you have insured? Since we're gonna add 2 more or 3 more, is that premium gonna change?
Madam President, Ms. Longoria, I don't anticipate that the price will increase since it is like a fleet insurance. and it covers multiple vehicles, and of course, being a school district. But I will look into that. I don't anticipate that the premium will increase at this time.
And I also noticed that this was approved at a special call meeting on August 2010. Is there a reason why you didn't purchase the vehicles back then?
Well, we had to plan for cutbacks and try to make it to the end of the year before we made that determination.
Spend the money?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Now, I have a question on those Suburbans. Is it first come, first serve, or how is it that you are doing it?
Yes, ma'am. It'll be a first come, first serve. Whoever asks for it first, and if they're available, they will be issued to that campus or who's ever requesting it. As I mentioned, there's times that we have loaned these vehicles to some of the departments. For example, the curriculum department has used our vehicles to go to some workshops and also to carry some visitors around. We had some visitors from school district up north, and we use those vehicles for that purpose. So we utilize them as much as we can. Our plan is to use the old ones first and try to conserve the new ones and run the old ones into the ground before we start using these full-time. But we do want to get maximum use out of them. And we also have situations where, we have one student or two students going, and we want to allocate and assure each one of the high school campuses that they will have one at their disposal.
So this money was already allocated in the prior year, just bringing it into the coming fiscal year?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Move to approve.
thank you.
No, it's not a.
There's no motion
no
to approve, it's
motion.
just
I
a
apologize.
presentation.
Thank you.
We now go to item number 3, presentation on SunGuard. Dr. Montoya?
Madam President, members of the board, the Departments of Technology Services, BITech, Special Services, and PEMS, with this proposal here, will procure software services and training from SunGuard to upgrade and also to standardize our activities in the district. Mr. Garcia?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Montoya. Madam President, Dr. Montoya, board members, Mr. Robert Fisher, our Administrator for Technology Service, will be giving you a brief presentation on what is the intention of this upgrade. So at this time, I have Mr. Fisher present here. Thank you.
Madam President, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, it's almost been a year that you've heard the word SunGuard come to the board. I felt and we felt as though it was something that we need to bring to you again. It's renewal time. The new school year will start July the 1st. We just wanted to give you a brief synopsis, a stepping stone, if you will, where we're at in the transition, the change, the reasons why, as we spoke of last year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Departments of Technology Services, BITech, Special Services, and PEMS will procure software services and training from SunGuard through the State of Texas Department of Information Resources, SHI, for another school year. This presentation is provided for information conveyance to the board of the status of the transition of the current independent server-based application to a new web-based consolidated application. The transition is needed because the company has started to phase out the old system and they will no longer support those products. This change will benefit our district in a number of ways, not the least of which will be the decrease the number of independent servers needed, which will decrease the amount of power, which will in turn create cost savings over the years. Web-based products will generally be more accepted to the technicians because changes will be made to the product will be immediately changed throughout the district, throughout the entire BISD network in an instant. A more robust, resourceful, and easy-to-manage database. Within the last year, the Brownsville Independent School District has proceeded in the first of 3 major phases to complete a major upgrade. This upgrade includes the consolidation of many server-based systems into one large web-based application. The result of the user is more flexibility in future upgrades, more access, and more important, lower cost of ownership over the years. In the background that we typed out for you, gave a kind of a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and the challenge, some of the challenges that we faced, but I'm excited, and I believe the folks behind me are excited that we're moving into this transition. The old one worked, this will work better. There's a transition phase, as I've spoken of. The second year, our biggest challenge is training. With any software upgrade or any changes in a software, you have some type of a training, and that's going to be one of the biggest challenges that our department's going to have. The folks you see behind us represent data entry clerks, PEMS entry clerks, all throughout the district. So that's one stepping stone, as well as teachers, administration throughout the district we're going to have to train. So we're hoping, and we've already set up schedules for that for next year, but we're excited. We know that it's going to work better. We're hoping that administration at the campuses will be able to utilize this product a whole lot easier. It's supposed to be more user-based, user-friendly. They'll be able to produce some reports on their own. As time goes on, they'll be able to produce their own reports. And it's just a challenge of the years. The product that we have, it's a good product. We're just moving forward with it. Again, this is just a brief synopsis of where we're at. We wanted to bring to you here in the beginning of our new school year. We entertain any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Saavedra.
I notice here that you have the eSchool, that's the program that we had talked about for the scheduling, is that correct? The E+. Is it an update, or is it new? Is it?
Well, does anybody want to speak to that?
Yes, ma'am, that'll be upgrade, that'll be part of the training that will happen.
So we've never had eSchool?
We've had Student Plus, and then
Yeah.
eSchool is the upgrade to Student Plus.
Okay. So then this is new? It's an upgrade,
It's
but
an
this,
upgrade
we've
with a new
never
name.
had this program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. May I continue?
Go ahead, Dr. Saavedra.
And the funding will come through from?
Multiple sources from the different departments, but it's already, we've sat down with budget, we've worked that out for next school year, so hopefully, I'm to assume on Thursday, the school district budget for next year, it was asked for to be placed in that budget for next year.
Okay. Now, the other question I have is on the training, because a lot of times what we do is we train, then those people leave, and then, what happens? So do we have enough people being trained?
Great question.
To make sure that there's that transition and that we don't get lost in that transition and translation of the programs?
Great question. Two things that we're going to try to work with. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lead teachers within our department that are going to get trained on every facet of the program. So they've already set up schedules at the respective campuses throughout the district at different times during the year. We know that it's one of those things where we don't want to take teachers out of the classroom during instructional day, so we're going to be able to try to see what we can do about recording these, make PowerPoint presentations, make it ease of use. Grade speed, for example, we currently use it right now. When you get the new grade speed, it'll taste like, feel like, sounds like almost, so the transition won't be that big of a jumping stone. We all know that when we went from Windows XP to Windows 7, things weren't exactly in the same place, but it was there. We just had to relearn. Kind of the sort of similar, the same thing.
So only 6 people will be trained to go and train?
No, ma'am.
Oh,
We're going to have
okay.
multiple folks being trained, but I'm keying on those folks because that's what their job will be for most of the year. That's what they do currently now. That's all they do is training. In this case, we're going to be pushing forward quickly on July the 1st and start moving as many campuses as we can and have a train the trainer, train the trainers. We have a technology support person at every campus that's going to help us utilize that as well. I don't know I always call it the Black Diamond Day. District-wide staff development days that we have in August, we get with those folks. I meet with them, these trainers will meet with them and discuss certain days, hours of the days where it'll be most beneficial for their campus. Work with the facilitator, deans of instruction, principals, in order to do what we can in order to get the word out to the campuses to make it work. We want to make this work.
Yeah, but it'll be before the first 6 weeks, right? Because I'm
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
if they're going
Yes,
into a
ma'am.
new
That's-
grading
this is-
system, I'm looking grades have to be in, 3-week reports. It's going to be overwhelming for the faculty.
For sure. That's why this is only phase 2. Phase 3, this time next year, we'll be doing it implementing. But next year is all about training.
Did you have a question, Ms. Longoria? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know the cost of this upgrade.
On the background, page 3 of the,
580.
we tried to break it down into detail for the board members.
580,000?
Yes, ma'am.
722 to be exact. 580,722
Yes, ma'am.
And this covers the training and
maintenance.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
maintenance? That's it?
Yes, ma'am. And that's a high end. We may find that during the year that we may be able to assume some of these costs ourselves and do them in-house. Hardware, for example. Hardware we quote right now, when we procure that in December, may be, I won't say half the cost, but it may be cheaper. So we're looking at these numbers as being a high-end cost.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Saavedra.
I have one of the highest costs, just for the public to see what we're looking at. One of the biggest purchases are for the IEP, the Student Plus and the IEP. That's $301,600. What is wrong with the system we have now?
It's coming end of life. We're having to transition into the new eSchools 360.
Mr.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Peña.
I'm familiar with things coming to the end, falling apart, because I work for the state where we're hanging onto strings. And usually by the time we get stuff, it's already being obsolete. Is our present system in that current state?
Well, it isn't. I don't believe it is, but the problem is if we continue on it, we won't get any service at all from the company.
See, that's my question, because I remember we were buying parts on eBay, which says a
So
lot.
they hold you on that,
Yeah.
because you can't get the service, so
Right.
you gotta do the upgrade.
So, yes, ma'am, that's the way it works.
They kind of diminish that so they can make you move.
Technology.
Yeah, that's the way the technical world's moving. Okay.
Dr. Montoya, if you could please ask Mr. Fisher to work on a breakdown in the past. I'd like to see, so we can show the public how much we've spent, because I know that we've had problems with it in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
And we had problems with it when it was purchased, and the money that was spent was just outrageous. I think we need to make sure that whatever we go into, it is gonna be good enough to service at least for a good, 3 years, 4 years. What I'd like to see in the past 5 years, what has this district spent in this type of software, in this type of upgrading, and when was the last time that we upgraded, and when was it approved? Because I know that last year we approved close to 400,000, and I questioned it. And we were told this was gonna be it. We were told that we were not gonna have to do any changes, and I'm gonna go back to the minutes. And it bothers me that another year with budget, and now here we are asking again, let's go out there and spend 580. Didn't we know a year ago that that transition was gonna come into play? Do we know right now, at this point, how many districts are using this type of software that is feasible for them and that works well without having to have any technical problems? Because, we spend all this money, and we want to make sure that if we spend it, it's because it's going to be worth our investment. Training people every year after year, the teachers get frustrated as well, They want to be able to come back to work, get ready to start, and move on. But, not long ago, I recall my first year, we approved 400,000. The second year, we approved another 400,000. You're talking about 800,000 there already. And now, 500,000, you're talking about $1 million plus. So what happened? I know some of my colleagues were not here, but I remembered very clearly that you, as the administrators, stated that it was going to be good the last time we approved it, and we were going to be good to survive, I guess, this coming fiscal year, and it doesn't seem to be that.
Madam President, members of the board, we will work with Mr. Fisher and his group to give you a breakdown more specific of the last 5 years and some of those expenditures and
Please,
issues
and
stuff.
give us a breakdown like this exactly of what that year, was it the maintenance? Because I know that last year I had a question about the training and the maintenance expenses. And I remember it very clearly. So this is coming up to us for the third time. So I just want for some of my colleagues that are here, to be able to go back and reflect and say, okay, so are we gonna get into the same situation a year later and come back and say we're gonna need some upgrading again?
May I,
Okay,
sir?
please.
I just wanted to add a couple things. The cost that the line item 301,000, and there's some other costs in here, we're gonna see a substantial price per year because of just the maintenance. That's one of the things that we keep bringing back to the board is the maintenance of the product. In this case, it's going to be a little bit different because we're doing maintenance and so much as a transition at the same time. But I can tell you that I don't think it's ever going to be extremely low. It's always going to be in this price range or a little bit lower because of the maintenance requests that we have on the whether it's an old software, whether it's a new software, we're still going to incur a maintenance cost towards it.
And I understand, but if we can just see the expense that we've done through the
Sure.
past
Yes,
5
ma'am.
years, so we can all have an idea. And then how often has this upgrading been a change to our district? Because if it's on a yearly basis, does it really happen on a yearly basis?
The
Or,
08,
you
the
know,
last one was
I'm sorry?
upgraded, was it 08 when it was upgraded last?
we had an approval
I'll be
last
honest,
year.
this is my first year to the lectern with the word SunGuard, so I know the product, I've known the product for a while, but this is my first time to the lectern related to that, but if, anybody want to say something?
Good evening. We have 3 different products, and they were handled independently before. This will be the first year that the company has an integrated product, and that's what we're trying to push it, integrate the 3 products, because that's going to be reducing your maintenance costs at the end, and that's going to be better for all of your people that you're servicing with the software. For example, PIMS will be integrated now with the business, so now you're going to reduce your data entry as well. So in the long run, you will save money.
And you see, because I recall that we bought a software and we couldn't get it going where we could look into the warehouse to see what it, now, is everything gonna be linked on, like, when you buy something and it's gonna be linked on, like, to the grading system, to purchasing, to, or is it gonna change? Because I know that we've bought software before or something to be able to service our needs, but on the long run, we end up having difficulty with the system. So have we checked what districts have been using this software that is working great or that they haven't had any problems? My concern is this: I know that 2 years ago when I was working in the system, 3 years ago, we were having problems with some of the software that we had purchased. So, and then when I come on board as a board member, I find out the cost. Well, you know, for the times that, I mean, you used to, your department would send us, system is down. And then it wasn't just one day, but it was 2 times a day, 3 times a day, and then the following day the system was down again. So my question to administration is this software that we're buying going to be compatible to all our needs and to the equipment that we have? You know, I just want to make sure that whatever we're spending through time, it is worth the expense. It's not wanting to spend, but we got to be very wise. And those are things that, even if we have to do a little bit more extra research, but to make sure that our tax dollars are being spent wisely.
And that's why we're working together right now very closely to make sure that everything is geared towards making everything easier for all of the different departments and areas. And I can tell you that a lot of districts are going with SunGuard now that they bought like different companies and they've consolidated. A lot of districts are going, and in fact, I heard that they were one of the state software finalists. So they're improving a lot on their customer service. So I think we're making the right choice and moving forward with this integration.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Aguilar. I mean, Mr. Aguilar.
Not a
Oh,
doctor.
Mr. Aguilar, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Aguilar.
It's okay.
Take the compliment, take the compliment. For one day.
Dr. Aguilar, right?
For 30 seconds.
For 30 seconds. No, I can see where the concern can be about not being competitive for all districts, but historically, I think we're going in the right direction because at one time, there were two departments, and everybody wanted their own computer type of setups and their own software. Therefore, we were never competitive. Then we go down into the middle administration, even to the principalship, they had their own software. So actually, and this is why we kept on spending money, because each department, whether it was food services, whether it was personnel or whatever it was, we could never do the same thing. Everybody wanted to do their own thing. So now what the administration is trying to do is have one software that operate consistently across the district. And every time you change software, it's going to cost you money. It's not very cheap, it's expensive. And the maintenance and all these upgrades, it costs money. Even your own personal computers that you buy. I just bought a wireless computer a year ago, and look what has happened. Now it has changed. If I need something else, it's going to cost me money. So can you imagine what is going to happen to a school district that spends millions of dollars? That is the cost, what it is, and that's reality. It's not that we want to spend money. The administrators don't want to spend money just for the sake of having the latest, but that's the reality, that everything changes. I think what we were having problem with some of the software is, I think, with the lack of training.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. It had nothing to do with the software. Is the personnel was not trained adequate enough. If I may, I just come back from the San Antonio Leadership Conference. There's a school district that trains its personnel. Do you know there's a waiting line for people, teachers, people to want to be trained? And it happens because they have an incentive program to train their personnel, whether it's a computer, whether it's a
iPad.
Whatever it is, and then the district doesn't have to buy it, but they'd rather go to the community and say, hey, this is a price for this training session, and you'll be surprised how some of these people are eager to go back to do their training so they can go back to their campuses and be very effective.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Any other comments or questions from the board? Mr. Fisher, thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, presentation on Employee Benefits Committee Review, Selection, Recommendation Process for Voluntary Insurance Products. Dr. Montoya.
Again, this is a review of sharing further information on this process and this area, but Mr. Garcia, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Dr. Escobedo. At this time, Kent Whittemore is going to be making a presentation as to the process that we have used so far, and then we'll take it from there, and after the presentation, if there's any questions, we'll go ahead and answer.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board. Just to kind of reiterate, first of all, thank you for letting us provide an update. This item has gone back and forth a little bit. We've come to you. I don't want the board to feel like it's gone upon deaf ears. What we've done is each time we've met in the past, on the June 8th meeting, I believe, and the joint ad hoc insurance committee and board insurance committee, there was input, concerns, comments in regarding this process. We have taken them in, we have evaluated. I'm just here to provide basically an update on what we've done to this point. In regard to one of the first areas of concern, and one of the primary areas I felt from several board members, was the opportunity to inform the board or the employees and also solicit input. We have addressed that. We will be going out and working with inserts and mailers, also working with our website with Ms. Brown and some possible other activities to try to get some more input from the employees. Again, I know this was a concern, and it's something we're going to work very diligently at. I feel it's important. I know there were comments from the public also regarding this area. So we are addressing it, and everything we do, and in terms of administration, we take it very seriously in that matter. Some of the other comments, I believe, I know, and I take responsibility for this, probably in terms of some of the information that was provided as backup. Sometimes it's better to give too much than perhaps not enough, as we saw in this process. What I did include in this agenda and also in previous Friday letters and some information that went out last week also to the board was some backup information regarding the vendors that presented, the individual names, occupations of those on our subcommittee that participated. Again, I wanted to see that the board, that we had a good diverse group, that we had individuals that have certification, things that really comply with certain laws and requirements to make sure that the process is above board. Again, I strongly believe in this process. I felt it was a good process that was representative. Also, I provided documentation and worksheets that would show the cost comparisons and the benefits. I wanted to get in those a little bit today, but I know we do have some vendors in the audience, and I'd rather not touch on that right now, in that it is still an open process. But it is attached on your backup. There are columns, one that will show precisely the cost benefit recommendation or advantage to which company. And I think if you look at it, you're going to see there are substantial cost savings to the employees, as well as increased benefits to what we have. Again, I stand by the recommendations, and that I feel that if you look at that, you will really see in terms of the cost and the benefits comparison. Also, again, I'm looking at hindsight now in terms of the time that we take to notify the employees before. It's what I was really looking at on the timeline after. Again, to educate, to work in services, to provide plenty of time to notify the employees and get out there and work with them so that their enrollment process is much more enjoyable. I don't look at this just as a product that maybe some of the vendors do to sell. I look at it as a benefit that our spouse, our children, our dependents need. And sometimes the process becomes so irate, and that we're enrolling with so many different vendors at so many different times, frustration sets in. It pulls time away from us, from our jobs, from our classrooms, to where we're looking at doing it as a one-time enrollment to explain the benefits. And I know that's some of the primary points of what the recommended vendors had brought to the table, as long with online enrollment systems. So again, those are areas that we've looked at. Again, hoping not to step on any toes or anything, I did provide prior information from last year. It was brought up at the ad hoc, and it's just a prior ruling by council that I wanted to just put out there for information. I feel you need all the information possible to make good decisions. And again, it was primarily to review and look at those potential liability issues. Again, part of what you pay me for is to protect the board and protect the district. And that's what I try to do with each and every decision that I make. Again, we wanted to let you know and come here and give you an update and let you know that, your comments do not fall on deaf ears. The comments of the community, they do not fall on deaf ears. We're here to work and to service. But ultimately, again, I have to make the recommendation that I feel is in the best interest of the employees based on their recommendation. Again, this was not administration. This was those employees that were involved and chose their own products. So again, I come to you with that information. I promise you that we're going to refocus and come to those areas and evaluate, and that I will come back to you again with a final notification and proceed at that point if it feels justified. And I open it up for any questions that you may have and welcome them.
I have Ms. Longoria, and then you.
Mr. Whittemore, these 4 vendors that you have listed here,
Yes, ma'am.
and you say that it's not mandatory, that the employees can keep what they currently have, right? So why don't you add what is already in place? Why do you leave them out?
Okay.
That's a good point.
I've learned sometimes I try to interject because I'm thinking as you're talking, but the one thing we look at, ma'am, and really the primary benefit of this is it comes at a group rate. We get a better price if we solicit a product. Again, to offer all products, some of them just were not advantageous to the employee. I'll give you an example. I had 5 vendors submit the recommended vision plan. The same plan, because it was, without a doubt, an awesome plan. I mean, the benefits, when we looked at the vision, and without getting into prices, I can tell you that the current one, we look at contacts and glasses. That's basically what you want with the vision plan. The benefits and the providers available on the one recommended compared to the current are just so much better. I mean, it was obvious and it stood out. So in order to offer to those 3 or 4 others, I've got the cost of doing business, which is I have to have additional payroll slots. I have to do additional processing from mine site, inputting, and things of that nature to where we don't really expend funds in terms of that, but it's just the process that we open up, and then we open it up for all sorts of vendors on other products, and
Okay. I understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
That, you know, they'll give us a better rate is if you have a group, say 100 or 200 employees sign up. Okay, so what if these people transfer to this other new vendor, and then the rest of the remaining people that stay with the the current one, what's going to happen to them? Is their rate going to increase?
it should not, ma'am, and let me give you another example.
Because they,
With-
at that time, they gave us a group rate also.
Right, and with the prior vendor that we had, Specterra, we still have the slots for those employees, and there are some individuals still on the Specterra Vision Plan. And they have been able to keep that. The only product I feel that, and I understand that there may be a difference, is on the disability, and I think that was addressed at the ad hoc meeting. But again, from where I stand, I have to recommend to you the recommendation of the EBC. And
Also, I thank the Employee Benefit Committee for giving up their time and volunteering their time to review these plans for these vendors. However, I don't think it's fair for the rest of the employees, because what fits one person is not going to fit the other person. Everyone has different needs. Everyone can afford different prices, different plans. So I really don't agree with going this route. I think it would be more beneficial if you had a vendor fair like we used to in the past. All the vendors would come here to the boardroom, different times, different days, and the administration, staff, employees would come and visit with them. And then another day, the campus employees would come. I think that would be more fair to every employee, so they can pick and choose who they want.
again, from my standpoint, and with all due respect, ma'am, and I do understand what you're saying, I think administratively, it would be a nightmare. Again, let me just emphasize that those products, and I understand everyone's needs are differently, with the spectrum that we had on the committee, is they took into account all employees' needs, not just their own. So they did look at cost, and again, the way we ranked. But I do understand what you're saying, and anything can be looked at.
And it's not really costing the district any money, because this
Yes,
is
ma'am,
costing the
you're correct.
employees.
Yes, ma'am, you are correct.
And the work that entails, I guess it would come to your department, where you would have to do the enrollment or the paperwork, and then submit it to payroll.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the way it works, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I think, yes, Mr. Whitmore, I think what the way I understood her question is because you listed the vendors that were present, and you list them on here in our backup, and nowhere on our backup are the ones that are currently there, and that's what she's trying to say. Find some way to put in the fact that the other ones are there. Because if you do this to us, and this is just what I'm thinking, okay? I'm interpreting what I've been given. And we're educated enough to know that what's the other ones, I really don't know them, I like to know them. Then people who are out there involved in their students' lives, doing other stuff, they kind of think, oh, I guess the other ones are gone, I'm gonna go change, let me see which one I pick. And that's kind of strong-arming them. And any way you look at it, when you put a list out like that, and you put the new vendors, and you don't list current and still available vendors, then it makes it appear to some people, 7,000 of them, they don't all think alike, and some people see the glass half full, some half empty. So it's kind of like being unfair to the ones that are currently there. They still like it. We get calls saying, well, I didn't know I could stay with the other one. I thought they were gone because they didn't show us that name. So I just want to make sure we're not, and with all due respect,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want us to be sneaky.
No.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
I'm saying that, including me, myself. I like to be upfront, and sometimes we say things and they don't come out properly. They're not intended. But remember, I go back to write everything down and list it to where any of our second graders could pick up the paper and know exactly what's going on. And we always want it to be at that level. Because the more intellectual and the more you try and change it, then people start thinking, well, what's going on? And then we can't really answer them and tell them, well, they do it this way because of that. So that's what I'm asking. Somewhere, make sure that when you put the ones that are available, you also immediately under there say these are still current and available. Because, you know, some people say, I like them. I want to pay $20 more. Leave me alone. Some people like that. This is the great US of A. You have that option. But I want them to have that option.
Yes, ma'am. And we did make sure, especially last year, like on the switch on the other cafeteria, Section 120, those plans, we did make sure. And sometimes, like I said, again, I get educated more, and I really need to oversee the enrollment process to make sure what is being communicated to employees is that they understand. And we did do signs and things like that, and I am with you 100%, and that's part of the communication process and the notification.
I appreciate
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Saavedra.
I just have a comment. When you do work with the employees, those that show up for these employee benefits, do they then go back to the campus and get the information to the employees who were not present?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Good point. We discussed that today. One of the important things that we did when we reestablished the EBC and the bylaws is that's one of the functions of the committee. We did build in some check and balances. Again, you learn, you see, and what we're going to do in the future to ensure that it is actually happening. I mean, I feel that it is because of the concerns I get brought on different products, different providers, and concerns that they have to where we have to respond. But to ensure and make absolutely 100% sure that it is done is to get in a copy of the agenda, make sure that they attach the item, and get a copy of the sign-in sheet. And I'll file those with any other papers or concerns.
Okay, but that's when you have the meeting. I don't show up to the meeting, how will I get that information?
We email it out. We have, again, a chairperson. We forward copies of all the minutes. We do minutes at each meeting. We forward those upon completion at the next meeting. We email everything out to all representatives and I believe even some of the alternates that we have if there's alternates. We have an email list, yes, ma'am.
And to the employees?
To the
Do we do
employees?
a mass
Well,
emailing to the employees as well?
we haven't to that point. We've counted on the process that was set up, and again, we're building checks and balances in, and we are working to modify those EBC bylaws.
May I ask why we never did the mass emailing to the employees? If they're the ones choosing these products and paying for them?
I understand, ma'am, and I'm sorry, but I don't have an answer for you on that, yes.
I think, again, Madam President, members of the board, we probably need Mr. Whittemore to revisit how we're getting the information out. You obviously have certain procedures, certain ways of doing it, but obviously we need to do more. And I think we need to discuss that and see what other ways we can do to get the information out to all our employees.
Sure.
So I think that, we can work on that issue.
Sure.
Dr. Esquel, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I guess I have a slightly different point of view. I'm going to respect the decision of the committees and the subcommittees. I don't feel that I want to second guess them unless I have concrete evidence or a strong reason to do so. But unless I have that concrete, solid evidence, I'm not going to try to tell them that they made a mistake in their selection. Now, these firms I'm not particularly familiar with. As far as their financial stability, how do they stand? Strong, weak, poor?
Again, sir, one of the areas that we ranked on, there were several. There was primary cost, benefit, prior service, financial strength of the company. Again, on your backup, particularly in the one area, I can get it on the other two. It deals more heavily with that because of the large amount of dollars. Across the top, you will see on the left, it'll say financial rating, and it'll have it. And of course, you have A+, A minus, and then it's, and again, sir, with all due respect, because I do have vendors, I really would allow you to look at that, please.
And I understand. The reason that I ask, and I did see that back up, and I appreciate that it's very clear. The reason that I ask is because I've heard a concern or two that one or some of these companies are in very weak financial condition, actually on the verge of bankruptcy, and if they don't acquire this account, that they're going to go bankrupt. Can you verify or confirm that?
No, based on references that we've checked, based on everything else, anything that is submitted to you, again, I stand behind 100% with my reputation. I support the employees. Again, without doing the homework, I would not have submitted. Again, I have heard nothing to that effect, and again, I go by what's presented to me and references that we follow.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
In reference to the committees and the subcommittees, can you give us, again, like an example of what kind of members? I mean, we had teachers. Did we have anybody from procurement, maybe even from internal audit? I don't know.
Yes, I'm sorry. As I stated earlier, yes, sir, we did. We had teachers, we had counselors, we had nurses, we had office staff. We did have a representative from internal audit, two
You
from
did have from internal
procurement.
audit.
Yes, sir, that really we worked with closely to ensure that, you know, the legitimacy of the process was respected. And again, at no time, you know, was there ever concerns addressed by any members of the committee at that point. They all signed conflict of interest statements. They presented no concerns when allowed or at the full EBC, sir.
Sure, thank you. And you actually brought it up right now, and you'll forgive me, and I'm gonna ask you a very obvious question, and forgive me if it seems slightly inappropriate, but you did sign yourself a conflict of interest statement, correct?
I have nothing vested. I have no
Do you have any
skin in this
interest in any
game,
of these
sir.
companies,
No.
any personal interest?
No, sir. I need a few more years to retire, and I hope to ride them out in peace.
You're not gonna retire like after the vote?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, not at all.
Well,
That's
again, I
fine.
just
I've
wanna
been hit
reiterate-
on both sides from both areas, so it's okay.
Again, I just want to reiterate to my colleagues and to you and to the committees that I'm going to respect the committee's recommendation. If they went through the process, I'm going to believe that they know what they were doing, they knew what they were doing. I'm not going to try to tell them otherwise, because I have no concrete evidence that there is something going on that's inappropriate or wrong or erroneous. So I'm going to, you know, I thank you for this presentation and for the past one and for the backup, but I'm going to stand by the recommendations of the committee. Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Longoria. Then we'll come to you. Well, go ahead, Mr. Colunga.
She gave me the floor.
Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. I also agree with the need for the information that went out to employees to come back as a confirmation or online survey of what their opinion would be in the changing of the companies. There's also at the point where you have the EBC coming back with what the employees have responded with in some sort of informal survey, or I know it's summer and it's hard to get a hold of teachers, and so it's limited as to having a large percentage respond to a questionnaire or a survey, but in trying to get a confirmation that would be helpful in trying to consider the previous discussion that we had, and also on the committees themselves. They are advisory, of course. It is your recommendation as administration as to what the best route would be for the employees as an agenda item. But in terms of the role of the committees, I did want to point out a contradiction on what has happened with the role of the committee in the TPA health insurance. That was not approved at the last meeting, so that was not a confirmation of what the ad hoc committee had recommended. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
But this went through the, not through the ad hoc, this went through the employee committee, correct?
Correct, sir.
Great.
Correct.
And I appreciate it coming because I think in the backup there was a letter by legal counsel that it doesn't even have to come to the board. So I appreciate you bringing it to the board anyway.
Yes, sir. As I said, I'm here to protect and to
Go
serve.
ahead, Ms. Longoria.
Dr. Montoya and Mr. Whittemore, and
Yes, ma'am.
when you send out the information again, district-wide to all the employees, if you could please add the current vendors that are in place right now, so as not to confuse the teachers. Hey, we gotta change, because, some of us don't read the whole, letter
Absolutely.
information, and it's, oh, we're gonna have to change. And another thing that I have gotten calls of, that they feel pressured from some of these vendors. They tell, hey, you gotta sign up here, right here, today, because I'm not gonna be here tomorrow. And because, you know, the new vendor's there and the current vendor is not there. So they want to compare, you know, whether it's beneficial to them to change or switch or cost effective. So, you know, if I would please ensure that
And
that's not, does not happen anymore?
Well, we had it last year, ma'am, and again, like I said, you know, again, my thought was to come early enough to educate, and by providing more education and having more time to work with the employees at in-service and everything, I could really get out and get the administration's input and you know, communicate to them what, you know, what is what, so they don't feel pressured.
But
Again,
I believe that if they see all the vendors listed on there, they will be more comfortable and less confusion. You know, say, hey, we can stay with our current one.
Yes.
We don't have to switch. And also ensure that the new vendors do not pressure our employees in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Again, Madam President, the members of the board, Mr. Whittemore, we need to visit the next few days and revisit the process of sharing the information. I think you shared that there's a good start, but obviously we need to do it better and expand so that all employees feel like they're getting the information. So we'll work on that.
of course, absolutely.
So in
Again, I
that
thank
sense,
you.
and forgive me, maybe I missed something. So then where are we on this item?
It's a
No,
presentation.
it's just the presentation. You're correct.
I'm fully
it-
aware of that, but I mean, where are we on the process?
Where do we stand with it? That's many questions.
That been implemented, and at what stage are we?
Basically, again, working with Mr. Whittemore, we're looking at that list that he presented, but the board, obviously at one of the last board meetings, at least, you know, as a group elected to say we need to go back and revisit some of those vendors and to see if we want to continue with them, so.
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
You know, we talk about all these vendors and we talk about a fair, whatnot, but I remember the administration got a recommendation from the board that all those things should come to the board. Now, the next thing is the communication. With all respect to my profession, there's sometimes apathy among our profession. We send them an email, and what happens? Someone just read it and never get anything in return. Perhaps sometimes we have to send them 2 or 3 times before they get an answer. And then again, those members of the subcommittee, they're professional people, and they were elected by, I'm pretty sure, by the department or campus or whatever it was. Now, they have also a responsibility. And perhaps we as your committee somehow make them accountable and say, let's set a percentage that I want to make them say, I'm going to reach 80% of my teachers in my campus or whatever it is. If it takes once or twice to ask them, I'm going to do that. Otherwise, we're going to have the same result we have been having for the past, I don't know how many years. This is the same complaint that we hear year after year. They call the board members, look at this, what has happened. 1 or 2 calls, and they say there's a mass protest out there because it is lack of communication. Unless our profession itself really be serious of what's happening, what's important to them, because they get what they pay for. And sometimes how much can the administration, how much communication has to be out there. So you as administration and our employees really should also work together and say, this is important to me, and next time somebody send me a survey question or whatever, I need to participate and send it back. Those members of the subcommittee, if they were elected by their campus or departments, they must have the responsibility to say 80% of those members of that committee, of that campus, I would approach them and get an answer. Otherwise, we're going to have this again and again and again. Thank you for your good work, sir, but there still needs to be done, Dr.
Thank you, sir. Your comments are well taken, sir.
With no more further questions, we now go to a presentation of the
Thank you,
Brownsville
Mr.
Independent. Thank you, Mr. Whittemore.
Thank you.
Presentation of the Brownsville Independent School District Quarterly Investment Report for the period ended March 31st, 2011. We all got a booklet, Dr. Montoya?
You all again received the booklet that you receive. Are there any questions on this particular period ending March 31st, 2011?
me, sir.
No questions from the board. We move.
Thank you, sir.
I have some questions, but I guess I'll come back to them later. We now go to item number 6, presentation of the Brownsville Independent School District financial report for the period ending April 30th, 2011. Dr. Montoya?
Again, Madam President, members of the board, do you have any questions that we can try to answer for you?
Go ahead, Ms. Longoria.
Dr. Montoya or Mr. Garcia, on page 95, on your agenda and the computer top 98. Under the revenues and other sources, federal revenues, and I've asked this before and I'm still not clear with the answer. Are you there yet?
On page 95?
98?
95 on the booklet and 98 on the computer.
Okay, the booklet doesn't have 95 pages.
I'm on
Well,
the
over
one-
here on the agenda, I'm sorry.
On the agenda, at the
agenda,
bottom,
at the bottom.
95, and on top, the reader is 98.
The 95 is right there,
The bottom.
number? Yeah,
95,
95.
right, okay.
Okay, under federal revenues,
Yes, ma'am.
budget adopted 1,351,421. That was the amount that was budgeted, right? When the budget was adopted.
That's correct.
Okay. When you go to budget adjusted, that means you either withdrew or added, right?
That is also correct.
Okay, so in this case, okay, and then you go to the actual to date. It's 5,674,933, and then the balance, it's in parentheses, it's 4,323,512. So is that overexpended
No,
amount or?
That's actually the opposite. When you look at revenues, if you have a negative on your revenues, that's actually a good thing. So what they're saying, if you notice, is that the adopted budget was $1.3 million, and now we're up to $5.6 million in revenue. Therefore, you have had an increase in the revenue side of 4.3.
million.
Now, if you see those negatives on your expenditure side, then yes, you're going to have issues that we would need to address.
Okay, I don't see the expenditure side here. Where,
The
which
expenditure
column is
side
that?
would be the very bottom. The first part, if you notice, is your
Oh, okay,
your
at
revenue
the
part,
bottom.
and then at the very bottom, it says expenditure and other uses. Those are your expenses right there.
Okay, but the 5900 series is not here at the bottom under expenditures.
Right, your 5900 series, your 57s through, there's several ones, 57, 58s, and 59s. All those are revenue codes. So if that's what that is saying. So if you're looking at the one for federal revenues under the 5900, that's what represents federal revenues. And again, this is a good thing, saying that we have exceeded the estimated revenue amount. Now on the bottom, if you notice your 6100s through 66 and then your 800 series, those are your expenses on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
One's revenue and the other one's expenses.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
We now go to item number 7, presentation and notification of allowance contingency fund change orders. Hannah High School Performing Arts Instructional Facility CF contingency fund change orders. Number 3, Hannah High School Performing Arts Instructional Facility Landscaping contingency, contingency fund change orders. Number 1, Porter High School Instructional Facility Utility Allowance. Also CFCO number 1 for Porter High School tennis court number 8, CFCO number 09, Porter High School 8th tennis court, CFCO change order number 10, Palo Alto Sports Service Center interior signage, CFCO number 2, Hannah and Porter High School building additions, CFCO number 4. Dr. Montoya?
Again, these are the ongoing projects that are still needing to be finished, and I'll have Mr. Guerra explain specifics. Mr. Guerra?
If there's any questions from the board, Madam Chair, Dr. Montoya, I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Dr. Saavedra.
If you look on 115 on the window top, that gives you the page number, I just have a question on the invoice.
Is that 115 on your
That's what
booklet?
I'm looking for.
112 on the page.
Yeah, no, but it's 115 on the
115 on
bottom,
the-
so let me see which one it is. Because that's
Oh.
the invoice I'm looking for.
115 on the bottom corner?
112 on the bottom or 115 on the,
Let me see.
is it spa
I
glass?
have it, there's a letter, oh, here. Yeah, 115, it's the letter. You see where it says, the very last statement, this proposal does not impact our construction schedule if officially approved by BISD School Board no later than May 31st, 2001.
It's obviously a typo. They forgot to include a 1 there. Should be 2011.
That's possible. Page 115 at the bottom.
Yeah, because it's dated up there, so it's not going back to 2001.
No, ma'am, it is not.
Then the other question I had, if you look on 123, that's an invoice. Yeah, it's 123 on the top, at the bottom it's 120 on the booklet. They charge us for labor, and then they're charging us for labor overtime. If they're doing it and it's costing us, are we paying for their overtime? Does that make sense? Because I don't want to pay for anybody's overtime.
Well, ma'am, this is part of the contract. This does not impact the total amount of the contract whatsoever. This is what they're spending in getting this project built. If it entails extra overtime for them, that means less profit for them. They're
So
gonna get
that's
that.
theirs.
That's theirs.
Their-
They're gonna get the same amount of money from us that they would if they spent no overtime, or, you know, if they did it in less time that they're saying. So, no, it does not impact the amount of the contract. It's their expenses.
If I may, Ms. Presas?
Go ahead,
So what you're saying is they get X amount of dollars, and how they pay them out is their doing. So they pay it on regular time, or they call it overtime. It's the same X amount of dollars we're giving them at the end. Am I correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
So how they choose to label it is their doing.
That's correct,
No
yes, ma'am.
impact on the original, okay, I'm out.
Those were my questions. Thank you.
With no further questions, we now move to item number 8, presentation for the request for qualifications for forensic audit service. And on this item, Dr. Montoya, what we'll do is we'll allow the presenters to present while some are inside, the others presenting, the others will wait on the outside.
Madam President, members of the board, we did set up that as a process. Mr. Garcia, Ms. Pena, did we do a drawing as to who's gonna present first? We did a drawing of the groups in that order to present. The other groups will be escorted to another area. Is that correct, Ms. Pena, where they cannot hear in the hallway? Sometimes in the hallway you hear the presentation,
Well,
so.
we can turn off the mics
Oh, they
outside.
turned off the mic.
Yeah, okay, so we've got that covered there. So at this point, Ms. Pena, if you'd like to go ahead and present.
Do you know how many minutes each one will have, Ms. Presa?
10 minutes.
10?
10
10
minutes.
10
or
minutes.
Will that be enough for the presentation and the
better.
questions?
Yes, may I go ahead and address, excuse me, and then we can iron
Go
out the
ahead.
questions. Good evening, Madam President Garcia, Dr. Montoya, and board members. At the request of the board and through administration, the purchasing department put out to market a request for qualifications for forensic auditors. RFQ 12-022 was received and opened on June 15th of 2011. The district received 3 respondents to this request. Prior to the opening, a ranking committee was formed with Ms. Flores as the lead on this committee, consisting of 7 members. And the members and also Ms. Flores are with us this evening. Tonight, we have phase 1 of the ranking process, which is a presentation by the 3 respondents. Each has drawn for presentation places, and each has been allotted a time of 10 minutes, including questions. However, it's up to the discretion of the board if you want to allow more time. Those that are not or will not be presenting will remain in my office. And as the presentations are being concluded, we'll be going back and forth from my office, bringing in the presenters. Also, please be reminded that the questions must be related to the presentation only. Discussions and questions relating to fees will not or are not allowed at this time. Phase 2, which is the final phase of the ranking process, will take place tomorrow at 8:00 a.m., at which time the ranking committee will gather to make their evaluations of each and will determine the highest ranked firm. Subsequently, the highest ranked firm will be presented for approval at a special call board meeting scheduled for June 23rd of 2011. With this being said, I call on the first presenter of the evening, and that it is Deffenbaum out of Austin, Texas.
Yeah, when everybody's...
Good evening. And I don't know how to turn it on.
Madam President, do we have a list of
Do we
those-
have a list of
those
the
presenting?
They'll be giving us, I guess, the information, and we'll know. I don't know. Ms. Penga, do you have a list of the ones? Maybe if you can get us a copy, please, to show which ones are the ones that are coming, their names, please.
Just advance.
Perfect.
A list of all 3. Thank you, ma'am.
Would you all like for me to start, or is my 10 minutes starting right now?
Oh, we'll get you, you can get started, Mr. Deffenbaum.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Danny Deffenbaugh. I'm the president of Deffenbaugh and Associates. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you today. I would like to start out by giving you just a little bit of background about Deffenbaugh and Associates. It is a Texas-approved incorporated company, incorporated in August of 2002. We are certified and licensed as an investigation company and a security consultant company under the Texas Department of Public Safety through their private security bureau. All of the associates are licensed, and all their licenses are up to date, and I've given you there at the bottom what our expiration date and the next insurance expiration date. I'd like to note that Texas requires $1 million for a security consulting or investigation company, and I have $3 million worth of insurance. The reason why is not because I get sued all the time, but it's because of a lot of the different government contracts that I've been involved with. I think one thing that we bring to you is the experience. I think that's extremely critical, and especially in the type of audit services that you're requesting. My team has over 225 years of federal, local law enforcement, and private investigative experience, 85 years of forensic audit experience in conducting financial fraud investigations, both federally and locally. We have one certified fraud examiner who has 18 years of bank security experience. And on staff, I have a computer forensics specialist who has 17 years of experience through the federal system. Each team member, of course, brings its own, hers or her own specialty and topical expertise, but I think that you'll see, particularly if you go through with the references that we have given and the expertise and the experiences that our individuals have, that we've been involved in both international and domestic type of cases, and some of the most noteworthy financial fraud cases that have been worked through here in Texas, particularly back during the 80s. All 3 of the certified fraud examiners, forensic auditors were involved with the savings and loans breakdown from here all the way down to Brownsville up to Dallas. That was one correction. I'm from Dallas, not Austin. We've been involved also not only with criminal, but also civil litigation as far as any type of financial fraud investigations. At least 4 of us have been involved in financial fraud investigations of allegations of fraud that have been involved in working both the civil and the criminal aspects, and many times running them parallel down the same length. So I think in this situation, particularly if you're looking for whether or not there is any illicit activities that may be involved in looking at getting civil remediation or recommendations, again with the criminal aspects, our experience is what really matters. As far as next steps, I noticed that you all have requested that there be involvement by whoever the approved vendor is going to be in assisting with policies, procedures, next step for guidelines on what to do, how to fix, and how to remediate. I've been a certified police instructor for the FBI and a forensic instructor during my tenure of 33 years with the FBI. Our security consultant, Kardaskis, is a certified T-close police instructor, and myself and the security consultant certified examiner, Ron Schultz, have also given security awareness training both in Texas and internationally to include Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. I think probably the biggest addition that we would have for enhancement in this audit is our personal service. We are a relatively small company, and we give service in that same manner. When you call the telephone, it's either me answering or one of my associates who are all going to be able to respond to you exactly in kind. And we are there to assist with any other type of remediation that you may have after any of the audits bring up whatever type of either findings or allegations of any type of misconduct that could be construed through that. Myself and Fred Colley. Fred Colley was the deputy chief from Arlington Police Department over their internal affairs division. I worked about 2 years for the FBI in our Office of Professional Responsibility, so we're very familiar with employee misconduct at the same time. Be glad to open it up for any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I
before
just wanted a clarification. It's not Austin, it's Dallas, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dallas, Texas.
I just
My
had,
question is,
Madam
go ahead.
President, I just had a question on what has been your experience with school districts in this type of audit?
When I was in charge of the FBI, we had a very long-term, long-tenured investigation of allegations of criminal misconduct and corruption in the Dallas Independent School District. You'll probably see as one of my references is Dr. Michael Moses, who was at that time the superintendent over Dallas ISD and later was your TEA commissioner, as a matter of fact. We'd be glad to give him a call if you'd like to know what my references are in that respect. But as far as Dallas Independent School District, they've had a history of having a lot of problems and issues within that district that actually rose to the level of federal prosecution, to the point that there were a number of their different board members who were even thrown in jail while I was the agent in charge of the FBI, and 2 of them, I think, are still sitting there waiting to get out.
Okay. My question is, that's one of the areas where I wanted to go into, because I know that Dallas has had issues with, I think they had I spoke to a former board member who was, she was the in charge of education up in Washington. She was appointed when I believe President Bush was there. And I believe she was a board president at that time. And I think there was employees that were not employed, but they were paying people. Was that one of the cases that you were familiar with?
Yes, ma'am, it
There were
was, where
calls-
you have ghost employees. As a matter of fact.
Ghost employees.
There was a new system that was established to where they have actually the card key system, so that they have to log in at certain times so they can identify particularly where their maintenance personnel
Were.
were and were working.
Working.
Probably the best example I can give you of one of the biggest issues that was actually turned over to the district attorney's office in Dallas was that their maintenance department was under such scrutiny that there was one time that during the summer, they decided for the next school year on, okay, how many of these type of riding lawnmowers are we going to purchase? How many push lawnmowers are we going to purchase? And after they got their tally for what they were going to purchase, then they went around the room on, okay, who wants their own riding lawnmower? Who wants their own push mower? And even the individuals that didn't order, when those items came in, they were helping the other employees who were stealing, putting onto their personal trucks so they could drive them away. So that's the kind of systemic corruption that that
Okay.
was involved there at one time.
And that's, did you want to ask something? Oh, and you see, that was my concern, because I had met with her approximately like about 2 years ago, and at that time, she had just left Washington, D.C. So she kind of brought me up to date with all the different scenarios that they had in Dallas. The ghost employees was a big money waste that was going through the board members.
Yes, ma'am, and if you were talking to them about 2 years ago, you were also finding that they were issuing the credit cards and actually giving them out through to a lot of the teachers. And one of the board members, as a matter of fact, about 8 years ago, actually ended up furnishing her condo.
Okay, so my question was, you know the process of having to go to the DA's, you know the process of the investigation, and you have no trouble having to go knock on our DA's office and say, here it is, this is the investigation, or whatever the process may be. So you do have all that knowledge.
Yes,
behind
ma'am.
you.
Every one of our top echelon certified fraud examiners have conducted and reported with summary, executive summary, prosecutive reports, presented to them both to the local district attorney and to the United States Attorney's Office, and followed the case from the beginning through the end, and testimony at various times through the trial of what the results, investigative results were. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Diffenbaugh. Dr. Escobedo has just one
Real
question.
quick before,
We're actually out of time, so I'll be very brief, and I appreciate your brevity as well. You may have said this, and I apologize if you did. I see T-close, law enforcement, security, and that's obviously important. What about in the area of policies, procedures, procurement, accounting? Are any of your associates accountants or CPAs?
3 of my associates are certified fraud examiner, forensic accountants. Yes, sir. So they've been
Thank you.
involved in that entire process through not only for monitoring and seeing what's acceptable and right, but also myself
Thank
and
you,
2
sir.
other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Peña has a question.
and on these forensic audits, with your experience, what is the time frame that you recommend that an audit, forensic audit should go back to? How many years to? What do you recommend
You
the
should
norm
look
is?
at least 3 years and up to 5, but at least the last 3 years is probably the minimum. 5 would be optimum. You don't want to go back so far that it'll violate, or you'll go beyond statute of limitations.
Statute of limitation,
And
that's what,
statute
5
of
years.
limitations is between 5 and 7 years
5
under the
and
federal
7.
system.
And did I hear you say 3 accountants and CPAs, or did I hear?
No, I have 3 forensic accountants who are certified fraud examiners.
And no certified public accountant on your staff?
Yes, 2 of them are.
Okay.
But they're
Right.
certified fraud examiners, forensic accountants. So they are forensic accountants, all 3.
Their certification is,
Through the Certified Fraud Examiners Association, which is headquartered here in Texas, as a matter of fact.
thank you, Mr. Diffenbaugh.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now bring the next
Thank you.
one.
The second presenter will be Weaver and Tidwell out of Dallas, Texas, and we're going to allow a little bit of time for them to walk over.
Yep, that's it. Just do the downs. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to make this presentation to the board this evening. By way of introduction, my name is Bill Brown. I'm the partner in charge of the forensic practice for Weaver and Tidwell. We've got 7 offices around the state, about 450 professionals. I wanted to take just a minute to kind of set the stage, if you will. You know, it's our understanding that what the board is asking is they're looking for qualifications to conduct a forensic examination or audit, looking into the fraud, waste, and abuse in the in the district's business and financial affairs. One of the things I want to try and maybe just to start out with saying is, you know, when you're talking about fraud, waste, and abuse, you're actually talking about 3 different animals. And each of those 3 topics requires a different sort of remediation, if you will. Now, what I understand the board is looking for is a couple of things. First and foremost, to the extent that there's any fraud found, that we would be in the position to actually conduct an investigation, develop the evidentiary material, and actually work with prosecutors and outside law enforcement all the way through the prosecution of the cases. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of nuances that are involved in doing that sort of an investigation. So one of the services that we believe we'd be providing for the board is actually conducting the criminal or the criminal investigations, which could have both criminal and civil ramifications, and actually providing the end result is going to be the expert testimony at some sort of a trial or hearing. The second thing that we believe a service that we would be providing to the board is when you're talking about waste and abuse, you're not necessarily talking about a criminal act or something that would be civilly actionable. You're talking about, let's call it an errant policy and procedure. So one of the things I think the board is looking for and we're able to provide is that in the course of doing an investigation, we always find, you know, one of the places that you look a lot at is what are the policies and procedures, how are things done, how are they transacted, and with an eye towards, you know, what if we do have problems or weaknesses are exposed, and, you know, generally speaking, when you're doing an investigation of this sort, the weaknesses will be exposed, then I think the board would be looking to us to offer some recommendations for appropriate remedial action, and I think that's certainly a second type of service that we would be providing as a natural offsuit to offset, to our investigative work. The third thing would be, fraud, waste, and abuse. It's a very problematic issue to deal with, but the best thing to do is try to cut it off before it starts. So, a third thing that we would be providing with to the board would be the training that would be necessary to try and, as a preventive measure, either avoid having these types of issues, or at least, sometimes the goal is to, reduce the likelihood that to the extent you have a problem, that it will be found out in a reasonable amount of time. So those are basically the 3 things that we want to address here. The other thing, too, is when you're talking about doing a fraud, abuse, and waste investigation into an entity the size of the school board, you're talking about a very comprehensive examination of the affairs of this district, probably from side to side and top to bottom. One of the things that you have to realize is because there are a lot of different facets to what the board and the district does in the operations, you really need an interdisciplinary team. It's not just one particular type or another. Now, granted, we are a CPA firm, but for example, our forensic accounting practice, the members of our team, myself, I've been an FBI agent for 10 years. I've done a great deal of work in the area of white-collar crime. We have individuals that have worked with the FSLIC. I know banking was another issue. We've got individuals in our firm that are actually experts in the area of bank regulations and security procedures. We have we've worked with with the big 4 accounting firms, and I've actually practiced law for 3 years and headed up an investigations practice group. So we're really well versed. We got a kind of a broad spectrum of experience. Not to shortchange that we have a lot of our professionals actually spend a great deal of time working in school districts doing the annual audits. So we have a lot of people that know their way around school districts very well. One of the services that we provide in the forensic accounting practice is what we call the litigation support. Basically, what litigation support is it generally comes from either a civil lawsuit that's been filed, or in some instances, which we've been involved in lately, it's actually flows from a criminal indictment and a criminal action. Bottom line is, when you're talking about litigation services, we take a particular situation, and our job is to develop competent and relevant evidence and be able to, at the end of the day, put it into a very straightforward format. And the ultimate goal of what we wind up doing is providing sworn testimony in either a court of law or in a deposition or some other legal proceeding. One of the things I wanted to tell you, the idea of this concept of having a kind of a multidisciplinary team, these are the way we approach our big jobs. One of the things that's referenced in our PowerPoint is a case called AmeriFirst funding, and I think it's a very good example of what I'm talking about. This was a complicated securities fraud case. I was appointed as a receiver in this, and what we had to do is we had to put together a team of 35 people to take on seizing these businesses, tracing the monies. Much of it went offshore, finding assets wherever the defendants had diverted them to, collect the assets, put them into the estate, and then ultimately repay the investors. Now, the interesting thing about this is this was a classic forensic accounting engagement that we work on. So we had to find the assets, we had to develop the evidence of intent. We actually backed up and did the forensic work for the FBI. This case was criminally prosecuted, and I was testified at the criminal trial for 2 days. So it's the process from the beginning to the end where whatever the situation requires, our firm is able to put together a group of whether it's accounting types, whether it's tax people, whether it's the forensic accounting people who have the ability to do the investigative work. We've got the ability to provide all facets of this. Another incredibly important part of the forensic accounting process, and I think will be of interest to the board, nowadays, vast majority of the evidence or the information that we deal with comes in the form of its electronic format. So it's what we call electronic discovery or data mining or data analysis. We have people in our firm that they're experts in actually doing this sort of electronic discovery. For example, I think you'll find, I would be fully expect to find that much of the district's information is in electronic format. So when you're doing an investigation, you're going to have to be able to get in and use large volumes of electronic information and use it as a basis for your investigation and do your analyses on. So we also have that expertise in actually going in and working with the electronic data. One of the things that distinguishes a routine audit, if you will, from a forensic audit is that we deal with intentional acts. Developing evidence of intent is an important part, probably one of the most important parts of what we do. When you're doing a forensic examination, the records and the information generally will tell you about half of what you need to know. The other half is going to come through doing witness testimony, witness interviews. We've got a lot of experience in doing these types of interviews. It's different than what happens when you've got your external CPAs are doing kind of a walkthrough on a process. We're basically asking questions of people that probably is against their interest. We're asking them to provide culpable information against themselves or others. So the ability to be able to take this witness testimony and get it down into some format that will rise to the level of being evidence that can be used 6 months or 2 years down the road when the wheels of justice turn slowly, that's another area that we can provide. We've got a lot of people in our firm that do process improvement. So one of the issues I talked about earlier is at the end of the day, there's going to be a number of things, more than likely, that don't rise to the level of criminal fraud or civil fraud, but they do require weaknesses in internal controls to be addressed. We have a section in our advisory services practice that's what they do. They work on process improvements. They're going to look at policies and procedures. They're going to recommend to the board what are the best ways to, to improve those procedures with an eye towards, obviously, of course, to try to avoid having people like me stand up before you again, which is probably a goal that all of you should be working towards.
I think you have, how many minutes left? 3 more minutes.
Okay.
And I guess for questions,
Certainly.
Ms. Peña has a question, she said, and then maybe we can go back to the last part.
Okay, sure.
I just have one question. With your expertise, how many years do you recommend they go back and we do a forensic audit? How many years would be a proper length of time? I know you have your statute of limitations, and to make it a worthwhile audit, can you give me a time frame?
Certainly. Generally, what we work on is if you've got, in the absence of any specific problems, let's put that aside, that we don't know that there's a specific act. What we generally do is we generally will start with the current information and gradually work backwards. And what you do is you generally gradually work backwards until you're not finding the problems. I would say I would recommend probably 3 years for starts. 3 years, including the current year that we're in, I would go back 3 years. And then when you get done with looking back 3 years, you'll have a good idea whether the problems look like you can usually see where these problems start. They leave a very clear trail when they start and when they stop. And you'll be able to tell when you go backwards if you've gotten to the origin of them or not. So I'd say 3 years is probably a good rule of thumb, and then you have to just see how it goes.
Let's say you do 3 years and everything seems to be in order other than a policy violation. I'm talking about some kind of criminal act or inappropriate criminal conduct. Do you go past the do you go further, or do you feel, well, if you didn't find anything in 3 years, you're safe to say that it's okay? That's what I'm asking.
No, I think what you're doing is you're actually looking at empirical information that indicates you can tell when something started, and that you'll go back, especially if you're dealing with an actionable or criminal fraud, you're probably going to want to go back. Let me qualify that. If you're dealing with a criminal fraud, you're going to be involved with a prosecutor, either a district attorney or a federal United States attorney. You probably will be dealing with them at an early stage, and they're probably going to tell you where to cut it off. Well, we don't want to go back anymore 5 years, because you're right. You do have statute of limitation issues depending on what the crime is, and that's going to vary from crime to crime. So that decision probably will be made in conjunction with the prosecutor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I only have one question, I guess, which was asked, and then we got to ask the same questions. One of my colleagues asked if you had done any work for a school district before in the past, or what experiences have you had?
Me personally with a school district?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had the opportunity to do any fraud work on a school district as yet. So, no, I've not had any experience with the school district.
Okay. Now, I know because you're from Dallas, right? It says here on your...
Yes.
And I know that Dallas has had several issues with the E-rate, that they went to the Office of Inspector Generals, and they looked into the matter, and then they had also the ghost employees also. So that was in your area. So I just thought that maybe.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, when you look at it, when you're looking at a government organization, to a certain extent, there's a lot of commonality. For example, one of your big exposures are going to be procurement. If you've got, phony vendors, so your procurement issue is certainly a problem. I don't think that's anything unique to a school district. Payroll is always going to be another problem, whether you have bogus payrolls or not. So I think, the issues are pretty much the same, whether you're dealing with a city government, a county government, or, a school district.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now go to...
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess with no further questions from the board. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I guess the next presenter is up after you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Our last presenter of the evening is Comtech Group out of Beaumont, Texas.
Gentlemen, if you want to go ahead and come up to the podium there.
this little right arrow? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Dr. Montoya, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much. I'm Lamar Casparis with Fitz Roberts and Company, and this is Angel Sanchez with Comtech Group, Inc. We'd like to visit with you a little bit about the way we plan to look at the investigation should we be granted the contract. Forensic investigations are usually the result of a discovery or a question. You probably have both, or maybe a lot of each. So the question is, you may be wondering, how is a forensic audit different from a traditional audit? There are basically 4 classifications I'd like to show you. There's generally accepted accounting principles, which is what your traditional auditor usually does. That involves a certain standardized set of policies and procedures and ways that you follow through to get an audit report. There are compliance audit dealing with very specific items about whether you're in compliance with grants or not. There are performance reviews. I think you guys had one in 1994 and another one in 2002, which are school performance reviews. You often partner with the state comptroller's office for that. And then there are forensic examinations. And forensic examinations are very different from all those other 3. It involves a different set of tools, a different mindset, and different applications of principles. Sampling is very different, and the way we perform the engagement is very, very different than the other 3. So what's the difference between, another thing you may be looking at, since there are a lot of credentials floating around, what's the difference between a CFF, a CFE, or a CRFA? FF means you're certified in financial forensics. That's a designation granted by the American Institute of CPAs. Basically, it's designed so that you can study financial statement fraud. It doesn't necessarily drill down to give you the expertise that you need to find theft or embezzlement or other malfeasance. The other 2 designations for the CFE and the CRFA are very similar. The CFEs have partnered with the University of Texas in Austin and are a very good group, very well known. The group that I'm with is the Certified Forensic Accountant group. We're with the American College of Forensic Examiners, of which I chair the board of forensic accountants. We have outreach to other disciplines. I can find you with just a phone call, handwriting analysts, odontologists, all those kinds of things. So I reach out to other disciplines. How does a private investigator add value to a forensic audit? You can think of us as kind of the bean counters, the people with the white shirts running the computers, looking at the desks and going through paperwork. But we don't necessarily have the cultural or the business acumen of what's going on in the local community. Finished 2 investigations this last year, one in China, one in India, where we actually staffed up with people on the ground that could talk to us about what's really going on in that arena. As a forensic investigator, I can guide them in their direction, but without having that particular expertise, it makes it more difficult to connect the dots. So that's how your private investigator adds to your forensic audit. What qualifies a forensic investigator to do the work on an investigation? It's all mostly a mindset. I found it's much easier for me to train a private investigator in how I'm looking for compliance within the documents that record a transaction than it is for me to take one of my traditional GAAP auditors and give them the skeptical mindset to look at the same documents. It's a matter of views. So there's a big difference. So how do I know a good engagement match? Bear with me, I'm going to run through this very quickly and then leave this for you. These are the advantages that we think we have with our engagement model. We're absolutely client-focused. We're smaller, we're locally owned, we want your business, that's the bottom line. We have 2 independent sets of eyes. Biopic is better than myopic. It gives you better focus and it gives you better depth. It's a focused expertise. We staff the right people for the right job. We don't overstaff the job. We don't grab people that aren't busy right now to bring them over on our engagement. We actually hire the expertise that we need for the engagement, so we're dead on with our staffing. By doing that, it gives us a potential for stronger leverage. Our flexible model allows us lower average fees depending on the scope of the engagement. A lot of times where you need the greatest manpower, where you're running the highest number of hours, we can average those hours down to very, very affordable rates. And bottom line is we're value driven. We want your business so that we can earn your trust. Again, Mr. Sanchez is a private investigator. His work product has been used by these. I hold dual forensic certificates with the CRFA and the CFF. My work's been used by district attorneys, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. My last project was doing the due diligence related to the acquisition of a television station from the Ector County Independent School District, which involved federal monies from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, state money from the Higher Education Coordinating Board that flowed through from the college district to the Ector County Independent School District, which included Texas Education Agency grants, and then we had private grants through all of that work. We are your managers. The two people you see standing here today will be the two people that will be in charge of the engagement and will be down here working. Our two sets of eyes, we offer two investigating views, an operational and a financial. There's two different things. Operational malfeasance may not show up in your financial statements, in your transaction records, okay? Somebody could be using a brush hog to trim their grass. That may not show up in the financial records, but it's theft anyway. Financial malfeasance may not be revealed by behavior, but it may show up in the financial records. We believe by having two groups that are very strong in their respective fields, you get the strongest form of investigation, because the explanation and documentation of the behavioral and the financial anomalies corroborate your investigative findings. So, with that in mind, this is your financial and accounting staff and the functions that they will be fulfilling. I want to point out to you, we've been able to free up a couple of other people to add to my side of that staff. Michael Cameron is my shareholder. He's a certified public accountant. We'll be doing all of what we call your Benford and your statistical and your anomaly analysis. Depending on your ability to provide us electronic data, we're going to be able to examine vast amounts of data electronically to look for anomalies in that. Duplicate payments, similar addresses, payees that are appropriate, Benford studies, which be glad to go into detail, or leading digit, trailing digit analyses. It just goes on and on and on. Those are the teams. I've got William Perry, actually he's Eric, that's his nickname. He's a senior budget analyst for the Houston Independent School District for the last 10 years. He's been responsible for all the central administrative departments and budgets in concert with TEA compliance issues. He did not handle the things in the local school. In other words, your budget manager at your local school, K through 12, your 6th grade or your 12th grade school on that campus was not part of his oversight, but he handled the rest of that. He will be on your project team. Probably see more of him. Field investigation staff will include Mr. Sanchez, James Torres, Joanne Campos, Ron Merrill. And I'm running through this very quickly. I apologize, but you'll feel free to have a copy of this when we get through. Our stronger leverage, we want to be good stewards, so we suggest working under the direction of counsel. By working under the privilege of counsel, that protects you and the school district. We think that's wise. It allows us to be very candid with our findings. It allows counsel to vet our findings before anything is brought to the public venue. We just think that's a better way of doing business, and it protects everybody else involved. We want to propose a dual investigation track, data analytics, which we're very strong in, and personal interviews. We can do those two at the same time. The overlay of the analysis will be to look at your internal controls, your general compliance arena, and if we find shortcomings and places there that need remediation, we'll certainly be able to recommend places for you to remediate your internal control. And we're going to be looking at performance stuff. We're not going to tell you how to teach kids. That's not what we do. So we're not going to be doing a school performance review, okay? We're not going to do that because we're not going to tell you what to do in your classroom, but we can tell you if somebody's taking money and how to close that gap. Cost containment, that's the other two issues that we're very important with. That's one of the reasons I was able to save one of my clients last year over $500,000 because we scoped the engagement to get the low-hanging fruit first, the most important issues, and we determined when to turn the engagement over into law enforcement. We'd love to just keep billing you and billing you and billing you, but you're going to get, if the truth's known, there's going to be a diminishing return on what we're able to find, and it's very important for us to be able to tell you and work with you to say, look, I hate to talk myself out of work, but it's time you fired us and turned this over to law enforcement, if there's any findings whatsoever. Again, we're results-oriented. We both resisted merging or being acquired by other firms or acquiring other firms because it allows us to be more responsive to our clients and allows us a lower fee structure. We got a proven track record. Last year, saved a Fortune 500 client $500,000 in fees on a 90-day project. We were able to turn that around in 75 days and staffed up 22 people for that engagement. Our goal is not just to get this engagement. We want a long-term relationship with our clients. If you're just going to hire us this one time, we certainly appreciate that, but what we'd rather do is develop a long-term relationship with you. We value the relationship more than our fee. And finally, for us, it's all about value. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think we could deliver better value for the dollar. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to take questions.
Ms. Benya has a question.
Yes, thank you. With your expertise in this field, what's the time frame or the timeline that you would look at? How many years back do you consider a good start and of keeping in mind the statute of limitation if there were any kind of criminal activity.
Well, I mean, there's value in knowing what happened. How much value you want to attach to that is going to be up to the board and whoever you end up staffing. Again, we would probably, that's a question that probably best handled with council. The last thing I want to do is spend a lot of your money answering questions that don't need to be answered that you can't do anything about. If we can learn those lessons, then maybe we can go back what we would call a business cycle. I've already gone back and looked at your last year's audit report. I got that from the TEA, and I got the prior year's audit report off of your website. So I've already been reading your footnotes and already have some questions that I'd like to bring to the table and ask. That being said, you know, a business cycle when I do valuation work, 3 to 5 years is probably plenty. But I'm saying if you go back too far, you may not get a lot of value out of that.
Well, yeah, especially if you have no statute of limitation, you're pretty much spinning your wheels.
Exactly, exactly. Yes,
Thank you for your answer. And now, I believe one of my other colleagues asked, you know, the question was, have you ever dealt with any districts? And I believe you have, or...
Yes, ma'am, with the Ector County Independent School District. And again, a lot of the tool sets that you need in a forensic environment are not the same tool sets that you need to audit a school district. They're not the same tool sets that you need to do a compliance adjustment as well. What we prefer to do is work with counsel who may be highly skilled and basically ask counsel, what are the attributes you want us to test for? We want to scope the engagement based on what counsel wants us to test for. We don't want to bring any preconceived ideas about what we think compliance may need to be because we're not lawyers and we don't practice law. We'd rather counsel tell us, and then we can report our findings.
Good. So I guess obviously when you've done investigations, you go to the DAs and you follow that process of having to do what you got to do, so you don't have any problem having to do that.
No, ma'am,
Through
not
your,
at all.
I mean, you're familiar with the law enforcement, you're familiar with your process, your procedures. Obviously, you've done even work with E-rate. I believe I saw, you're familiar with E-rate also, where there's...
Excuse me, I'm not talking into the microphone, I apologize. I'm familiar with the E-rate funding, and just from looking back at the back and past information, again, we've read some of the newspaper articles and we've seen some of the blog entries and know that the districts had some difficulty allegedly filing the E-rate in a timely manner. So again, we would work with counsel because I don't want to tell you I'm an E-rate expert, but I do have a high level of expertise when it comes to computer and IP. My doctoral work was in information technology management, so I have a high degree of experience in that arena.
Okay, well, because I saw that as you were on your screen, so I, you know, I've had many questions throughout the process, but I guess you've answered the questions. No further questions, and Ms. Peña, if you can bring all of them in, because I think Dr. Montoya and myself were discussing a couple of concerns here.
Ms. Peña, can I ask? I'm sorry, Ms. Plesas, may I ask Ms. Peña if she could get each of us the presentations, because one group gave us a presentation, hard copy.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do. We'll send them over tomorrow.
I would really
through,
appreciate that.
Dr. Montoya's office. I believe the other gentlemen have left. I believe they had lights to catch. So with that being said, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
But,
much.
but if you can also, if you can bring all of them in, because we have to make a little announcement.
They have
Oh, they
left, ma'am.
left?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yeah, they have
okay.
to catch flights back.
Okay, so I guess you'll make the contact with them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's over.
Okay, that's fine. But you know what, Ms. Peña,
Yes, ma'am.
we're not going to be able to, we'd like for your department to do all the reference and go over everything by Thursday and maybe bring it back to us the following week.
Yes, ma'am.
We just feel more comfortable that this Thursday, there's still some
of course
reference checks that need to be made for these people. And I mean, you can do the rating and go
Yeah,
through the
we'll
process.
perform the ranking and just have it ready from whenever Dr. Montoya deems it
Exactly,
necessary.
and then he'll bring it back to us to a following meeting or so forth. But
Yes,
for
ma'am.
Thursday, gentlemen, don't expect for us to be able to do anything on Thursday. You know, they're going to do the ranking, and they're going to, you know, procurement process. We have to really make sure that everything is in place, that references are made, and that everything is in place.
Our sole concern is that you make the right decision.
And that's what we want to do. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your presentation. Very impressive. Okay, so we'll go to number 10. We're now gonna go to number 10. We're gonna have to, the attorney's.
Number 9.
Number 9, but the attorney's not in.
But that one wasn't moved,
So-
only 14. So
do
number
you wanna
9 still on.
Well, can we take a recess?
Is
The administration with
Administration
attorney.
doing the presentation.
We can skip it and come back
Skip it and
to
just come back to it, give it time to
and-
the
Or if
attorney.
you want a motion, I'll make it. What do you want?
And we,
What do you-
Oh
if you-
my Lord.
Is it that easy, Dr. Escobedo? Wow.
Ask me what I want.
It's
Because
related
we
to
can
number
bring
wanna-
number, we
related
can
to
bring number
14.
9.
wanna tie
we
it
can
to
bring
14.
number 9 back
Madam
to,
President.
Yes, it's related to number 4.
May I ask a question related to number 8?
A question related to number 8. Okay. Yes, sir.
Going back to when it was first brought to the board, can we get a review from Mrs. Longoria on the purpose of a forensic audit for this district?
Yes, sure.
Go ahead, Ms. Longoria.
Yeah, I had mentioned, I think I even brought it up at the last board meeting. My concerns were the audit reports, the external audit reports, the findings, and it had to do with numerous discrepancies and inconsistencies in the financial operations of the district as a whole. And other items such as the bonds, the $16 million bond and the $26 million bond, mainly the 26, that there were some unclear answers. And I believe that we owe it to our taxpayers, to find out whether everything was done, by policy and procedure. And also, since they didn't have a chance to vote on these bonds, we owe it to them to give them more information and to also let them know how much money it's going to entail, at the expense of the taxpayer. Because I know that for the $16 million bond, there's like a 1 point something dollar payment that we're going to have to pay, or we already paid this year. And for the $26 million bond, we're going to have to pay another 1.5 maybe or $1.6 million payment. That's a lot of money we're talking about, and we owe it to our taxpayers to make sure that everything was done correctly and accurately, and just make sure that we haven't gotten clear answers to these bonds, and also the other discrepancies that were pointed out in the audit report, such as purchases of land and contract payments that were not did not coincide with the contract. And there was a large amount, large amounts and thousands of dollars and millions of dollars we're talking about. So I feel we owe it to our taxpayers.
In reference to the external audit, it is in the response of the administration that you think that there may be more to it than what's there within the audit or the external audit?
Well, according to the audit, the external audit, they did mention we had violated a lot of policies and procedures. And then with the letter that we received from TEA, they did mention the laws had been violated. So it's pretty serious to me, and that's my major concern. And I just want to ensure the taxpayers and be transparent, and we're here, we were elected to ensure that things are done correctly, and also that there has not been any abuse with our tax dollars. So this is why I wanted the forensic audit.
On another note, Mr. Colunga, I really think, and I've been seeing it for the past 2 years, and I think it doesn't hurt the district. We've spent money in other areas, but this is it. This is a time that people might ask, why are they doing it? Why should they do it? But there's a reason behind it. A lot of us have been paying very close attention to the actual numbers and what's going on, the process that we've been taking. I was pretty disappointed at the way a check was cut out to purchase a piece of land. I had never seen a transaction for $1.9 million so quickly within 24 hours turnaround time. And like Ms. Longoria says, we were elected and entrusted with the finances of the BISD. And let's just this is not an attorney making the investigation. These are people that are certified in the area, and they are the best of the best. I mean, we're gonna go out
Ms.
there and try to
Presas.
bring
Yeah.
people that can do their job, not
Right.
just pick and choose. I mean,
And I agree with you totally, and I know the people especially are having a heyday out there. But my concern, and I also address our CFO, policies and procedure violation is not something you want to spend $500,000 to find out, because you pretty much do nothing other than fire them or tell them not to do it again. Especially if it's one of those practices that's been happening for years and nobody, kind of a gentleman's agreement. That's not what we're after. We want to find out if in fact there was a law violated, and then they can take it and see if it's a law, that's something that can be prosecuted. I have no problem with that, not one little bit. But to go out and spend $500,000 for policy and procedure violations, well then, I'm gonna have a hard time swallowing that $500,000 in the public's eye. But that's not what we're looking for. We want to, like Ms. Longoria said, we want to see if there was a law violated. That's exactly what we're after, and I have no qualms with that. I just want to make sure that we are very diligent with making sure that's what we're paying for, and not say, well, there's nothing here, we'll keep looking. Well, there's nothing here, keep looking. Well, some of the presentations were excellent. They were like, we're not going to keep looking if there's nothing there, because we don't do policy and procedure and how you run your district. That's your baby. I respect
concerned
that.
with the law.
We
Concerned
are
with the
more
violation of
concerned
the
if there
law.
was a clear-cut violation of the law. And I know that's something that our CFO would be aware of, and I know that Dr. Montoya, if I may address Mr. Garcia, do you feel the need or comfortable with them coming in and doing? I'm asking you because you were the office they're going to go in to look at, and you just took over that office. And I don't have a problem with it. How do you feel about having, go ahead, forensic audit done?
You asked me two questions. The
Yes.
first one is, would I feel comfortable? Absolutely. I mean, our books are open, we're transparent.
Thank you.
That part is no problem.
No brainer.
Now, if you're asking me what is my opinion, at this point, I have not been in the position long enough to give you an opinion. So it's
Exactly.
really,
Because you haven't looked at the paperwork. But that's what I want to stress. We're there to see if there was a violation of the law, not policy procedure, because they have no control, or will they help us in any way with that?
and that's what we're looking for, Ms. Peña. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Longoria.
And I just want to reiterate, it's not, well, aside from violations of laws, also the excessive spending that, $60 million were spent in the last 2 years and really have not been accounted for. And that's what we need to get to the bottom of. I have asked for reports, detailed reports as to how these monies were spent. I never did get the report.
I'm
Go
sure
ahead,
we're going to
Mr.
get one now.
Of course, everybody's concerned about what's going on with our district, and I agree with you people. It's amazing how we don't have a legislator and some of these groups in our audience saying you could do it free. TEA can come here and do a free audit and evaluation and investigation like they did about 2 years ago. But that doesn't make any difference. But, what I'm really concerned about is how far can we go? There's a lot of things that have been going on in the district that perhaps has been brought up to light in the last 2 years, and we need to look at it. And then how far are we going to see that perhaps some of our employees or former administrators were not involved in that land that you're talking about? 9.5, are you talking about?
No, sir, 1.9. We paid
1.9.
No, 9.5, I would have already been over the roof, sir.
1.9. I wonder if that's the one we're talking about at Morrison Road?
I believe it's that
it
one. I
is?
believe it's that one, and the transaction was done within 24 hours.
Well, the transaction
Without
was done. I know it happened without appeal, but you were present when you voted for it. In fact, you were jumping up and delighted, said, "Buy it, it's cheap. The man is selling it very cheap, and we need to buy it now." If the procedure, hold on,
I'm gonna let you
if the
finish.
procedure was wrong because we didn't have appeal, I concur. But I don't think there was anything illegal when you yourself also was in favor of buying that land. You voted for it. I don't know if you voted, but I know you were.
I remember what I did, sir. But let me also clarify for you that the price was brought down because I insisted for the price to be brought down because the price that was being paid was overpriced. And I was very adamant that if that piece of land was going to be bought, that it be bought, the price be brought down.
You
So
were not
please
the only
remember
member.
that.
All of us were
Thank
trying
you,
to get in.
Miss-
No. Let me explain to you. You just want to explain to the
No,
public
it's fine.
your side. But all of us, including Dr. Escobedo, we all were concerned about the price. The board said, let's try, we talked to our legal, that time Mr. Saldana, tried to bring it down. You're not the only one, man.
But I made it clear to you people
No,
what the market was around there.
Madam
Go
President,
ahead, Dr.
you know,
Scott.
in the spirit of moving on, I'd like to move to change the order of day. I'd like to move number 9 after number 26 before number 14.
That's, do you have a motion? Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Second by, motion by Dr. Escobedo, second by Ms. Peña.
After
After
20
26 before 14.
After 26 before 14.
Don't forget that order. That's complicated.
Move to after 26 before 14. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to standing board agenda items, board calendars. Dr. Montoya.
President Garcia, members of the board, just very quickly, we continue working on the budget. Our goal is by this Thursday to approve a balanced budget that will address the instructional needs of our students while not raising taxes on our community or placing undue hardships on our employees. That has been the goal of this board and administration. In addition, we will not be implementing a RIF, cutting days for certified or classified employees, using fund balance, or reducing stipends. We've been very diligently working together to see what our expenditures have been and what funding sources we have available. And we have gotten input from our board, principals, administrators, staff, and even community. So we feel like we're moving in a very positive way that I think will help our employees. So when Thursday, when the board votes on the budget, because we need to finalize that as well as the tax rate, we think it'll be a very positive thing for the community. And one last quick message here, just for everyone's information, all employees were scheduled to receive their payroll checks Friday, June 24th, but due to the financial system upgrade, and since we're on a summer abbreviated schedule, payday has been moved to Thursday. So that'll, I think, help our employees, and we want to make sure that they understand that.
Don't spend it all.
Yeah, don't spend it all. Just again, Thursday, 5:30, our budget, specially called board meeting to approve the budget and the tax rate. And next week, if the board approves, I'm sorry, on July 4th is Independence Day, but on July 5th will be the canceled, we hope, board meeting because of holiday, and rescheduled, I should say. And then on Thursday, July 7th, the Bond Oversight Committee meets at 5:30, and those are the only calendar events.
And the reschedule meeting?
Is it rescheduled or is it canceled?
It's been, yeah, it's been canceled for July 5th, so it will not be rescheduled. Now, again, going back to what was said earlier, once this board gets all the information, references are checked on the forensic audit group, you know, I would assume next week sometime would be just for that purpose.
That sounds good.
Oh,
We'll get it done.
if I may ask, so it'll be, Ms. Perez, so then once we get all the information, we'll reschedule an emergency meeting or special call just for that one item?
That item, yes.
Okay, that'll work.
And that's all the announcements, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya.
So no cut in stipends, way to go.
We'll now go to a public audience. This is a time for citizen, staff, or students to provide their comments to the board. Statements and questions from the audience will not be permitted during other portions of the meeting. So please let us hear from you now if you have comments to present. To have your comments heard tonight, your name and the subject matter of your comments must appear on the sign-in sheet, which is located in the rear of the meeting room. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes to complete his or her comments. With all due courtesy, I will strictly enforce that time limit. If a group of people want to be heard at the same topic, the board asks that they designate a spokesperson to avoid needless repetition. The board has adopted rules to preclude the abuse of open forum by, for example, anyone uselessly repeating the same comment or complaint meeting after meeting. All participants must understand that if your comment is, in my judgment, constitutes a complaint against an employee or officer, I will interrupt and ask you to stop and direct you to proceed with the BISD formal grievance procedures, be that DGBA, FNG, or GF local. With those cautions in mind, we will now be glad to hear the general comments. And we go with the first one, which is Rudy Espinosa, voluntary term life.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Montoya, and board members. I'm here again because I am trying to communicate, and hopefully this information fall not only on your ears, but it would be communicated to the Employee Benefits Committee. In that, let me make a couple of points. I'm the agent of 3 products offered through the Transamerica to the BISD employees under their voluntary products. 1, the term life, 2, the universal life, and 3, the accident policy. In the request for proposals that went out, only one of those products went out for request for proposals. That was the term insurance. And I want to make point that our company, which is substantially financially stronger than the one that at first has been looked at and recommended by the employee benefits, provides the same rates we've been provided for the last 10 years, and the new company coming in offers not a single advantage to switching over. There's a disadvantage in switching over in the confusion and to the employees by switching companies in midstream where they're not getting additional benefits. The new company supposedly is offering, and you must know this, and the Employee Benefits Committee should be aware of this, a product that they're referring to as permanent term, while the fact is that the product is not a term policy, but a universal life policy filed in the state of Texas as a universal life policy. The universal life policy has not gone out for proposals, only the term. The accident didn't go out for proposals either. In fact, last year, due to a company coming in here and offering a discount on another product, another company was allowed to come in and sell the accident policy when Transamerica had the contract to provide that product. I don't mind the competition, and I've communicated that to the employee benefits. But for them to come in here and try and change a product that is not offered for request for proposals that would cost the employees substantial amount of money as provided. Last meeting you had, I provided some of that information. I don't think it's right and correct. I think a lot of this information, unfortunately, has not reached the employees. Had the employees had a lot of this information, they would not have voted, or they would not consider switching companies. One of the biggest problems was that each provider, each vendor was allowed 15 minutes to discuss to the committee or present to the committee their products. In those 15 minutes, most of the time was spent on questions. And again, I'm here only to communicate to the employees committee and to you that there is no advantage at all. There's a lot of disadvantage in switching over to a different company when they're not offering a single rate cost, and our product offers more benefits. Please have the employee, I would ask that the employee committee relook at the information and reconsider. That is my point. If you all have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Time is up, Mr. Espinosa.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
now go to Sylvia Taylor. Ms. Taylor's not in. We now go. Sylvia Taylor? ¿No vino? Okay, Yadira Sepúlveda.
Muy buenas tardes. Yo vengo en representación de la escuela Longoria, donde mis hijos pertenecen a esa área. Yo vengo a tratar un punto muy importante porque mis hijos estudian en esa escuela y pusieron a una maestra en el PU, no sé cómo se diga en inglés porque no lo hablo. Lo único que yo digo es que yo contaba con esa maestra este año, porque el año pasado mi hija no tuvo un buen nivel académico. Entonces, yo quisiera que ustedes me ayudaran para que esa maestra regresara a pertenecer a la escuela Longoria, porque es muy buen elemento para la escuela y para 18 niños que nos iba a ayudar a nivel académico. Tiene un muy buen nivel académico, un muy buen estudio, y yo quisiera que ustedes me ayudaran en ese punto para que esa maestra regrese. Yo junté padres de familia con dirección, números de teléfonos a los que ustedes pueden llamar. Yo tengo en mi lista 30 padres de familia que estamos a disgusto por la decisión que tomaron. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, señora Sepúlveda. Y la escuela me dijo que era Longoria.
Sí, es la escuela Longoria. Yo tengo 4 años ahí en esa escuela. A mí lo que me preocupa es el nivel
Señora,
académico.
¿me puede llamar si quiere mañana y vamos a discutir este problema, a ver qué podemos hacer, ayudarle, ¿ok?
A mí me preocupa el nivel académico de mis hijos porque van empezando.
Sí.
Y
Que me llame mañana y nos sentamos, le doy tiempo y a ver qué podemos hacer, ayudarle.
Ok, muchas gracias por escucharme.
Gracias, señora Sepúlveda. Verónica Salinas. ¿Es de lo mismo? ¿Y Mercedes Zapata? Mitzel. También. Ok. Pues gracias, fíjese que es la primera vez que veo padres aquí estar en el público. Es sumamente importante tenerlos aquí, pero el doctor Montoya se va a encargar de eso nada más. Mañana llamen a la oficina y él se encarga de eso. Él es el jefe de los jefes. ¿Okay? Gracias. We now go to Gilbert J. Ortiz. Disability.
Madam President, Dr. Montoya, and the board members, my name is Gilbert Ortiz, and I am the broker for Unum Disability Company. And I just wanted to give you, talking back about the committees that pick the companies, I wanted to express that what happens is the present companies that are on, everyone has access to their benefits, and the companies that come in can look at it and pick what benefits they want to increase so that they can be a better, with a better presentation. I think that if the committee will let the present company to come in and be presented with those increases in benefits, and if the company can do the same thing, well, fine. Then at that point, the committee can pick the company that's going to give them the best service. That's only fair that both companies are on even terms. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Lewis Jones. Topic is voluntary process. Just give it to the secretary and you can. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I was saying Mrs. Board Member, President, but she's not here. My name is Lewis Jones. I am a financial advisor. I'm also on the ad hoc insurance committee for BISD. I am also a licensed insurance consultant. And I'm here today to kind of shed some light on you guys how this process works and what's going on here. You've heard from administration several times in the last board meeting, this board meeting. The insurance committee has also heard from administration that the payroll slots would be available to the employees if they so chose to stay with that current provider. That is simply not accurate. That is a letter that was given to the vendors when they first, or during the RFP process. This is the cover letter that was provided to the carriers when they bid on this process. And as you can see at the bottom of it, it clearly states, once this process is completed, only the the products presented and approved will be allowed to be offered through BISD payroll deduction. So it's clear that when these companies bid this process, they're under the impression that it is a full takeover. And let me tell you why that is. I'll use disability as an example because Mr. Ortiz was just up. Unum is not going to accept all the sick people staying on the plan.
Sir,
while
let's
all the-
not mention company names, please.
Okay, well, the current provider is not going to allow the sick people to stay on the plan while the healthy people jump over to another company. And the new company that is being recommended is not going to take the sick people while the healthy people stay over here with this company. They are designed as a complete takeover, okay? And now I understand why this process was done the way it was, because there's apparently some confusion or lack of understanding by administration. There was only, the employees were, the carriers were only given 10 minutes to come in and present their companies, their plans, their rates, and everything to the 10-person committee. Now, this 10-person committee reflects the views of 8,000. I don't understand that, but apparently it does. Anyway, these employees were given 10 minutes by the provider and 5 minutes for questioning and answers. And then they had to make a decision on which company they thought would be best. Now, this went every 15 minutes, bam, 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 bam. People have come to my office and told me that they just simply did not have enough time to understand these companies, understand the benefits. Now, Mr. Whittemore stood up here a few minutes ago at 6:12. He sat down at 6:40.
Let's not talk about mention names, sir,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry. The administration sat up here at 6:12. They sat down at 6:40. That was almost 30 minutes. That is twice the amount of time that the employees had to review their current product and review the plan and review what they would be spending their hard-earned money on. Now, you guys are going to be bidding or working on the health insurance here right around the corner in another month or so. Are you going to have the consultant come in, give him 10 minutes to present his findings, and you take 5 minutes to ask questions, and that's it? Of course not, because you're spending our hard-earned tax dollars on a significant portion of your budget, that is the health insurance. Why not afford the employees the same opportunity? Give them time to digest, give them an ample opportunity, give the carriers an ample opportunity to show their plans and so forth. So the best thing that you can do is go out maybe for a best and final, have the carriers come back in, and that would help the employees. As a consultant, this is my recommendation.
Comment, sir?
That's it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Our next speaker is Dayton Hoffman, Voluntary Bid Process Life Disability.
Thank you. Members of the board, superintendent, my name is Dayton Hoffman. I'm with Standard Insurance. I was fortunate enough to be one of the carriers that had the opportunity to provide several proposals for the of the Brownsville School District. We provided proposals for life insurance, term life, long-term disability insurance, dental insurance, and vision insurance. We were notified that we were a finalist and selected for a presentation in front of an insurance committee for life and disability. We were not selected for all products. My point to that is there was clearly a vetting process done by the insurance committee and the administration that was appointed to review the benefits that are in place. We were given information, as several good points that were made from some of the other individuals up here about the existing coverages that were in place. Is we base our proposals on the information that's provided us by the existing coverages. There's experience, plan design, rates, and all that information is taken into consideration when underwriting reviews it. That is something that the existing carriers have an opportunity to do all the time, and at renewals or anniversary dates, they could make changes or lower rates or make plan enhancements to your plan at any time during the next renewals. I've been with Standard for almost 10 years and covering Texas, South Texas. We have several school districts around the state, San Antonio Independent School District, Corpus Christi School District. We replaced actually your existing disability carrier in some of those school districts with a better plan and better rates. That carrier had been in place for 15 years, and I know it's a big change, but again, one of the things that happened during that process was we were able to come in based on the information and provide a better proposal. And that's something that same carrier had the opportunity to do during this bid process. There was a due date of April 29th at 12 p.m. and then a finalist presentation, it was actually 15 minutes for each carrier. And after the 15 minutes for each carrier for disability, then there was review by the committee, and then there was 15 minutes for each of the term life carriers, then review by the committee, and they voted and they did whatever. I'm not sure what the recommendations, it sounds like some of the individuals might know what some of those recommendations were, but I've never been informed of any of that stuff. I just know we were in consideration. We gave some very aggressive proposals. On the disability alone, I know that some of the individuals of the district would see upwards of $700 in annual savings on their benefits. and they would have the same benefits, if not an enhanced benefit, to some of the benefits they've been offered. Something else we offered in conjunction with the life and disability proposals that we offered is a refunding option. You might ask yourself, what is refunding? What that ensures is that the employees of this district will never overpay us in premium. So the experience for the for the current disability plan has been, there's the excessive premium versus claims. They have not had claims that exceeded their premium. In the event Standard was awarded or granted that business, we would ensure that the employees of this district would never overpay us in premium. We're okay making some profit, but we spread that profit over a bunch of business instead of just one case. And so in the event there's a surplus in that business after a 3-year rate guarantee.
Mr.
The
Hoffman?
3 minutes are up.
I'm so sorry to
Is it
interrupt.
5 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes, sir. 3 minutes.
When there's more than
Said
10.
5 minutes in the.
Oh, you mean that now because everybody's got
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. We now go to Mr. George Borrego Miscellaneous.
First, the bad news. Our party was canceled for tonight that I invited you all to, so it's going to be in August, our social for our ARs, and we always invite our board members. You were invited. Please do not go because it's not happening. We didn't have enough people show up, RSVP. On the forensic audit, is it going to cost in the vicinity of $500,000?
No, sir, we don't even know. I guess people are just throwing out numbers.
Oh.
That's something that shouldn't even.
Just a point of order, this is public audience.
It just seemed like a lot of money. I don't know how much it's
Sorry.
going to cost. We'll find out eventually, I guess. And I'm on the Employee Benefits Committee and have been for, I guess, decades. And the process that Mr. Whittemore set up is very good. There's no problem with it, except for the time allowed for vendors to present their products. It was not enough time for us to answer to ask questions and get answers. The process should remain the same, but the time should change, and I believe that we are flawed in accepting whatever administration recommends because we need to get the best deal for our people. And we did not go out for bids. We went out for proposals. And just like we went to Wells Fargo to get a better handle on what they were giving us and to negotiate with them, I think that our employees with the district should have the same option of being able to get the best deal by administration negotiating the best deal for them. So I rarely disagree with Patrick Hems, but today I do. Oh.
Thank you. We now go to Patrick Hemis.
Madam President, Chair, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, public audience. I'm here tonight as the chairperson of the Employee Benefit Committee, and as a chairperson of a district-recognized committee, and as a point of order, I'm going to request an additional minute or two to discuss the process, which I had also reported to the board last week, and answer some of the questions that was brought up by board members earlier this evening. May I be granted an extra minute or two, ma'am? There is precedent on this.
You know, I got to be fair, so 3 minutes,
Okay.
please.
Quick, as I reported to the board insurance committee last week, the process, we believe that the process was fair and accurate to all. There was a subcommittee. You had the list of the 10 members on there. It is a well-rounded committee. That committee listened to the proposals. As for the timing of the proposals, tonight you gave the 3 internal auditors 10 minutes. If it's appropriate for the board for a 10-minute presentation, I believe 15 minutes for the employees should suffice. It was brought back then to the entire committee on June the 1st. Again, recommendations were presented, questions were asked. Members of the subcommittee, and this is where I did the follow-up and reported to the board last week, or the board insurance committee last week. Of the 10 members, I asked if there were any votes that were 5-5 or 6-4. The answer to that was no. Everything was 7-3, 8-2, 9-1, unanimous. It was then brought up for a vote. 4 of the products, I believe, or 3 of the products were so much superior that there was not a competition for, and on one there was a vote, and the other provider was then selected. So I do believe the process works, and I would ask the board to continue to allow the Employee Benefit Committee to make the recommendations to administration, and that you would then honor those as you have for the last 20-plus years. In reference to a couple of the concerns, the last meeting, the Employee Benefit Committee, was June the 1st. We have not had time to go back and tell our colleagues on campuses of what's been selected, because the last day of school was June 3rd, the last day with kids was June 2nd. There were several excellent questions and recommendations on there. I believe, Ms. Longoria, I agree that the employees need to know that you have the right to say who you have, except for on the disability, and that the list of the previous providers, not just the previous one, but the ones before that that members still may belong to, should be listed maybe through a payroll deposit. As for communication, Dr. Saavedra and Mr. Colunga both brought that up as a concern, as did Mr. Aguilar, and that has always been a concern. It's been a concern of the members. We have been building the committee back up. You know, you are only as good as the person that you elect. And if that person's either elected or appointed on their campus, we are hoping they take the information back. The minutes are sent. Dr. Saavedra made the recommendation of sending the minutes out to all members, and that's a possibility. I can guarantee you that not all members will read it. One of the things that has occurred.
Closing comments, sir?
Closing comments, wrap it up, is attendance. We have improved the attendance on the committee, but we do have some campuses and departments that do not send members on a regular basis. I have the attendance sheets, would like to make recommendations to administration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Moving on to item 12, closed meeting. As pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 et sec, the board goes to closed session. Thought we had changed the order of the day and moved personnel up, but apparently not.
Oh, remember we said never mind?
If that is still the wishes of the board, we'll move personnel. If not, we'll continue with the agenda.
Dale pa adelante.
Okay,
Continue.
I'd like to move then to change the order of the day again. I'd like to move closed meeting, personnel matters. I'd like to move it to now, which is after public audience. And I apologize, I thought we had done that.
And I also, he asked me, and I said, yeah, I think that's what we did.
Yeah, so
We graciously accept your apology, Doctor.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6.
Okay, now I'll follow you
and
guys.
again, I apologize for the confusion.
Now we're in.
We'll just have
It is now 8:47. The board has now reconvened. We now go to item number 13. Recommend approval to amend resolution 018/10-11 to extend the early notification of resignation plan reopen the time frame available for employees' requests from June 22nd to July 11th, 2011. This resolution will be available for certified, classified, and special assignment personnel.
May I ask Ms. Presas a question?
Yes.
Are we going to make a motion on what we just discussed in the executive session? Did we do personnel? Move to approve?
That's right. Now we go, I'm sorry,
I'd like to,
go to the items of executive session.
I'd like to move to approve as discussed, all items on personnel in the back.
Motion by Ms. Peña. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Montoya, do you want to make the announcements for the counselor and the principals?
I'd prefer, if you don't mind, that we call the people to make
Tomorrow.
sure, yes.
Okay.
Accept.
Yes, I want to make sure, yes.
Okay.
I'd rather do that.
As per your,
Additional courtesy.
I,
mind.
it's,
Yes.
you run the district, sir.
Yes.
Newspaper. No offense, Gary.
You run the district, okay. So with all that said, now we move to item number 13. Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Motion carries 7-0 on that, item 32, 33, and 34. We
37, right?
And 37?
Oh, we didn't.
No, we didn't discuss 37. It was 32, 33, and 34. That was the motion.
35 also?
35 was, yeah.
Okay.
It was 32, 33, 34, 37, 32, 33, 34.
Yes.
Personnel.
So, ladies, we go to number 13. We had Mr. Colunga that has a question regarding item number 13.
Thank you, Madam President. The question is in what led up to the consideration for the extension? Was it the need to balance out the numbers as far as the numbers to be replaced from the original, as well as to cost savings to the district? Or
I believe, and I'll have Dr. Atkinson explain that. One issue that I received, and of course I didn't have the whole picture, but I did have some people that missed the deadline, and it was various issues, and someone came back and said, are we going to reopen? So I did have at least 2 or 3 talk to me over a period of time, just saying, for whatever reason, they missed the deadline that was in place, and they had said, is there any plans to open? But Dr. Atkinson, I think you have a little more information.
Good evening, Dr. Montoya, members of the board. Just briefly, the rationale, just like Dr. Montoya alluded to, we did have several employees that actually had asked. There was only really a 7-day window for the first time. So what we wanted to do was, and if you notice, this actually allows for a little longer time. And we did check with legal to make sure that we could go past the June 30th, which is the end of our budget year, and it didn't have a bearing on it. So we're almost at 3 weeks time period. So it gives them a time to come in, read through the documents, read through the agreements, and make a really good effort to understand what they're getting into. I think one of the things that has come up was the timeliness, having a short time period, not enough time to really get input from their family, friends, everybody else. So we did have probably about a half dozen on the certified side that wanted to have us reconsider that. We did have some on the classified side. And if you remember, we gave you the information late last week. We had about 140 on the certified side, teacher, counselors, librarians, and so forth, about 14 administrators, and about 60 on the classified side. So we do feel that this would be an opportunity for our employees to try to exercise that benefit before we close off the year.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Pesas?
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't think this would be something that would, in the long run, would benefit us.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't see, because I know I had a lot of people were asking questions. They were kind of iffy. They're scared, and they're asking people how long it take you to get into retirement.
Yes.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So at first you're scared because it's a lifetime change.
It's a life-changing decision.
It is. You're leaving a family. Really, you kind of are leaving a
Madam
family.
President,
Go ahead,
I
Don.
move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Escobedo, second by Mr. Aguilar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Discuss consideration possible action regarding, we now go to item number 9. No, we're going to
Yes.
move this one to 26. So right after 26, we go to
15.
15, recommend approval to pay Gomez Mendez Science Inc. $3,459.96 for Brownsville Early College High School. Robert Kistner Consultants in the amount of $16,944.71. Daniel Breeden Elementary School and Brownsville Academic Center. D. Wilson Construction Company, $479,770.90. Daniel Breeden Elementary School and Porter High School Instructional Facility. Spa Glass Contractors, Inc., $602,854 for Hannah High School Performing Arts Instructional Facility. Texas Descon LP, $1,074,548 for Brownsville Early College School and Brownsville Academic Center for a grand total of $2,177,577.57 to be paid from Local Maintenance Fund 199 from the Qualified School Construction Bond Fund 190. Do I have Ms. Longoria, you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Montoya, Mr. Garcia, I noticed we have some budget amendments on the following page, which are additional funding, so I guess that's monies that came in. Do you have more or less what the balance is for the qualified school construction bond?
I can give you the starting amounts, which is right here, a total of $25,770,000.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Peña, second by Dr. Escobedo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to recommend approval to pay Terracana Consultants, Inc., $5,341, Classroom Wing Addition, Pettis Elementary, paid from Capital Project Fund 360, correction, 634. Ms. Longoria, you have a question?
I move to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Dr. Escobedo, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 20, recommend approval of budget amendment number 129 in the amount of $591,367 for Fund 191 Qualified School Construction Bond Series 2010A Principal and Interest Payments. Item number 20, Ms. Longoria, you have a question?
Yes, it was the same question. I got the answer.
Move
Thank
to
you.
approve.
Motion by Ms. Peña, second by Dr. Escobedo. All those in favor?
Saavedra seconded.
By Dr. Saavedra. Sorry.
My voice
Sorry, I
hasn't changed that
apologize.
much, has it?
I apologize. I apologize. Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 21. Recommend approval of the budget amendment number 130 in the amount of $894,452 for Fund 191, which is the QSC Bond Series 2010B Principal and Interest Payments. And item number 21, Ms. Longoria had a question.
Yeah, I believe I circled 21, 22, 23, 24. I'm okay with that.
Move to approve 21, 22, 23, and 24.
Only 21.
Only
But,
21.
but
Oh, she
it's the
circled
same.
all.
But-
Yeah, I
but-
circled all of them, so I'm
We
okay.
didn't get it on the consent agenda.
They were
Oh,
only
they
the
were
consent.
Went in consent.
Oh,
So,
okay. They had circled them.
Motion
Okay.
for number 21 by
Lucy.
Ms. Peña. Do I have a second?
Yeah, she had them all circled.
Second by Mr. Aguilar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. We now go to item number 25, recommend approval to sign attached amendment to contractor for construction of allowance of the established procedure for off-site storage for construction materials with Texas Descon LP McAllen, Texas, to grant off-site storage for the Brownsville Early College High School described on the amendment document. Ms. Longoria, you had a question regarding number 25.
Yes, my question is, who is paying for the storage?
Mr. Guerra,
Madam President, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, in this situation, the contractor pays for the storage.
Okay, that
I
was,
have a question on that. So they're storing their stuff, our stuff?
They are storing building materials that they will
they're gonna
use for the
use for-
construction of the early
For building
college
the
high
school.
school
Okay.
at
So
a
it's
different
just-
site.
Okay, so they're storing material that they're gonna be using for us that we're gonna end up paying for.
that's correct.
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
I move to approve.
Second.
By Dr. Escobedo, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0, item number 25. We now go to item number 26, recommend approval to enter into contract with American Council and Education for GED Testing Services Testing Center for the year 2012 to 2013 school year.
Madam President, members of the board, this is the testing process of this program, GED, has been handled by our assessment office, our testing and assessment office, and again, we're asking that you approve this. Now, we understand that the legislature is possibly in the future looking at moving this to the university sites, but for this coming year, it will remain in the public schools across Texas, the process. We suspect a year or so from now, it's going to revert to all universities and taken away from public schools. But Ms. Peña, if you'd like to share anything else.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Mrs. Perez Garcia, members of the board. This is the first time, I believe, in 30 years that we've come to the board. We saw the contract and it required Dr. Montoya's signature, and we right away said we need an agenda item for your approval. This has been in place for many, many years in BISD. We service the community, the surrounding communities. You know that our adult basic students, that's a separate entity. Those students also are welcome to test at our center. And Mr. Raul Vasquez oversees this project. We do have a chief examiner, and she works right alongside, under Raul Vasquez, and she adheres to all the rules and regulations that are deemed by the state. If you see that there is a 2012 and 2013, I want clarification. The contract starts January the 1st of 2012 and continues. It's a different calendar because it's a testing calendar and it doesn't go through the calendar that the normal school districts follow. So that's why there's a change in the dates. Mr. Raul Vasquez also called TEA. We recognize that this was due, really, we don't have it here, but it was due earlier this month. Raul Vasquez got an extension because of our board meeting here on the 21st till the 30th of July, I believe. So, Mr. Vasquez, is there anything you would like to add?
Madam President, Superintendent, Dr. Montoya, Ms. Peña is correct. This is the first time we've ever brought this to the board. It is a process there's a contractual process between us and the federal government. It's not basically the state just provides, we buy all our testing materials from the federal government. And she is correct. We provide a service to the community. That's the basic thing about this program. But there could be some changes. Dr. Montoya is right. There's a lot of stuff in the legislature. There could be some changes. But the main thing I think that confuses a lot of people is it goes from year to year, not our calendar year. That's why you see 2012, 2013. Yes, any questions?
Because we're on GED, how are we accommodating, in other words, our dyslexic students in testing? Because I had someone ask who's severely dyslexic, 40 years old, trying to get a GED. I think it's 50 now. And he says that they said they can't help a dyslexic person. They don't have the means to test someone.
Allowances, the accommodations.
The accommodation. So this gentleman's been, I think he's turning 50. And we shut so many doors for these people because they can't apply for the district, they can't apply for the county. They don't have a GED, but they can't get it here. So where do we send a dyslexic individual for accommodations?
We try our very best, ma'am. We accommodate them by having the test a longer period of time during the period time. But you're very correct. On the federal guidelines, there is no concessions made for that at all.
I can tell them just keep going back until one day you'll get it.
Unfortunately, it does happen. A lot of them pay for all the tests, and they fail the test, and they have the right to come back within another 2 or 3 weeks. But then after that, they cannot come back for 6 months. Those are the federal requirements. So you have some students that keep on coming back.
So we have to attack this at the federal level.
Yes, ma'am, because it's their test. It's not ours.
I'd also like to add that if you were in the community and wanted a GED, you are certainly welcome to come to the testing center. If you go through our adult basic GED program that we have, they give basic skills lessons and teachings, learning, teaching, and help and assist the students to be better prepared so that when they go in to take the test, they may be successful.
But you know how complicated it is when you're dyslexic and you fell through the cracks. And a Scantron is a nightmare. I've seen honor students, 97-point average, make us 40, and the teacher not pick up. How did this honor student, it's got 95s, 97s, bomb the semester test, and it was a Scantron error where he got off. I've seen those students do that. So can you imagine a 50-year-old woman or man?
We promise you that we'll follow up. We will write to the state, and we will write to the appropriate personnel and see if we could come up with some concession, maybe computerized. I think that we are having a computerized program.
Yes, ma'am. We are moving. That's another thing that GED is moving toward one of these days, a total computerized testing.
A computer can have a voice where you can
Yes.
put an earpiece. And there's got to be some way, because we're failing these people miserably, and it breaks my heart. Because we got to do more.
Yes, ma'am. We'll follow up.
Dr. Saavedra, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I had a question on the fees. The district pays the fees, the students pay the fees. I know we get the materials.
The fee of the test is $80 this year. The district is only charging $85, but the fee of the test is going up from the feds. It's going to go to $92. So I'll have to make a recommendation to Dr. Montoya as to how much we have to pay in order to recoup. Because a lot of times, Dr. Saavedra, a student will come in and ask for copies,
Right.
and we provide it to them free of charge. But everywhere else, that's why
They charge.
TSTI, who also administers the test, charges $125 per test because they include all those things, and they don't have to charge you for extra stuff. So being the crunch that we find ourselves in, the fee of the test will have to go up because the feds are going up themselves.
I'd also like to add that Mr. Vasquez is researching all the other testing centers to see what the average rate for the fees are for the testing fee, so that perhaps we may come back to the board and ask for authority and permission to raise the fee for our students.
And I will provide an explanation as to why we would have to raise the fees. But right now, I can tell you that the test itself will go up to $92.
When is it going up?
This next year.
Mr. Aguilar, you had a question, sir.
No, I just had a comment, and some of it has been already answered by saying that she's going to look into the guidelines with the state. But that's the guidelines are guidelines, but service is two different things. I know that perhaps, I don't know if Raul, you and our adult base got to look into other districts that could provide some kind of educational services to the dyslexia person. I don't know if they can coordinate our special programs, the dyslexia teacher with adult basic, but definitely we need to provide, and computers, they help, but it's not the answer.
You're right.
Sometimes people don't even know how to use a computer, and we buy all this expensive equipment and stay there to collect dust. It's a fact. So would it be possible for somebody to, whether it's you or adult basic, can look into, maybe there's some district that has similar problems that have already worked at it. I mean, it doesn't cost anything just to pick up the phone and call.
I'll definitely talk to the director of adult ed to see if we can come up with something.
And if I may,
Thank you, Raul.
do we have anyone in adult ed who's certified to teach or has dyslexia background, 504? Because I mean, a dyslexic individual can understand and bring a dyslexic individual on the same page they are, because they have their way of learning and they can teach it. And there are some teachers that are not dyslexic, and they're phenomenal. I had one teacher tell my son, well, she gave him a piece of paper with the letters about 4 inches high. And I remember telling her very politely, he's not blind, he's dyslexic. So can you find, to make sure that we have someone in that program that has the ability to connect with dyslexic? Some people are gifted with that ability
Yes,
to be
ma'am.
able to teach a dyslexic individual.
I handle the testing part, but I can assure you I'll talk to Ms. Peña, and we'll get together with Debbie Alford to see if we can come up with something that will help those students
Please.
to prepare for the test. Because in my part, the only thing I can do is see if the feds will give me an extended period of time to test the students.
Somehow,
That's my
something.
part.
They have to be identified as
Yes,
well.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment in closing before we move on. You know, being severely dyslexic myself, you know, I can certainly relate to an extent. But when someone comes to you at the age of 40 or 50, it's very difficult to work with them. You have to get these students young, and so then they can work on the developmental and compensation skills. But thank you for looking into it.
We can help them, no matter how, they're still on the planet, we need to help them.
We will go
Madam
for it.
President,
Yeah.
I move to
Do I have a
approve.
motion?
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Escobedo, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0, and please, Dr. Montoya, they can look into that to provide
Follow
a
up
better
on that,
service, like Mr. Aguilar said,
working with Ms.
service
Peña.
versus regulations. We really need to go out and help our community. We now go to item number 9, as they were moved right after item number 26. And item number 9 is presentation of the procurement process followed for current depository contract. Dr. Montoya, I believe that's administration.
I believe what we were going to do, if I understand correctly, we were going to visit with our legal counsel on that issue. Is that correct?
That's what I understood.
Is that's the way administration, okay. So what do we?
Are we going to
close
visit an open
Are we gonna
session
visit
or an executive?
open, Executive, how do you want to do it, counsel?
I think if we can go into closed session so I can go through some of the legal issues would be better.
Would it be appropriate to just take number 9 and 14 together?
14 together?
They're together,
Yes.
9 and 14.
9 and 14,
Okay.
and then we come back and we, okay.
So,
So-
if I may, we're going into closed session for legal counsel. That's,
For legal
because we can
advice.
do that at any time.
Yes.
Because we're gonna, okay. That'll work.
Number 19 and 14,
9.
I mean 9. we'll be going to,
Well, we're gonna take 9 and 14
9
together,
and 14
correct?
together.
Yeah, because they correlate.
They
and-
correlate, they go together.
But if we can, number 14, I'd like to discuss in open. Is there a reason? Well, we can discuss back there so we can, right, because I don't want it to seem like we are trying not to share
We'll come back
information.
and share with the public. Okay. Do I have a motion for,
I move that we go into executive session for legal counsel on 9 and 14.
do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peña, second by Dr. Saavedra. Motion carries. Do I have all those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries 7-0. Ready, everybody? It is now 9:24. The board has now reconvened from executive session. We go back to item number 9, and that's presentation of the procurement process followed for current depository contract. And I'd like to ask council to give us go on record what's been discussed
Okay.
amongst the board and council and administration for the public.
In closed session was to address legal advice, but let me just provide the summary because I can't go into the details of it. I believe that the selection of the depository bank, Wells Fargo, complied with all of the legal requirements in the education code. The board had to look through several processes because of flaws at different levels that in many ways forced the board's hand and had to take it an additional step. In the end, though, I think that the board complied with each legal requirement.
Thank you. With Dr. Montoya for
number 9.
Yes, and now just to get back, Mr. Garcia, to number 9, to present that part of the presentation.
To number 9 or number 14?
No,
Sorry,
your,
number.
their interest, where you were
Yeah,
gonna
the
report.
CD,
Oh, the 14.
it's 14. I'm sorry, it's 14.
14 is the next item that was below it regarding the discussing consideration possible action regarding interest rates, CDs, current bank, and rates of former bank.
Madam President, if I may, Counselor, we would be out of order by discussing item 14? Am I right, or am I wrong?
Point of order.
We're discussing number 9, aren't we? Are we not?
We were.
Number 9 is the conference presentation.
Yeah, I was
Right.
just.
Include that in your conference.
We would be out of order by discussing 14, am I correct, or no?
On a point of order, number 14, if discussion, consideration, and possible action, if it's addressing potential action,
No action. No action, just informative.
okay, well, I'm talking about how it's
How it's written.
worded.
How it's written.
And how it's,
So it's point of order there on
This
that.
would essentially, would this not require a reconsideration motion?
in order to have action, which is
Yes,
how
ma'am.
it's written, it would require reconsideration, which means you would have to have a motion by a member of the prevailing side and a second in order for it to proceed.
Thank you. Madam President?
Therefore, do I have, there's no motion for item number 14? Motion dies. We now,
What about number 9, just what he was gonna present?
number 9,
That was not.
Number 9 stands alone. That's his, I have nothing to do, number 9 stands alone.
it was a presentation. Yeah, it was a presentation, but it was discussed
But he
and
never made the presentation, why did he not make the presentation?
the presentation with the administration inside with,
If I may, Dr. Montoya, will you clarify?
I think that, again, with legal counsel on number 9, that was the one that we discussed in executive
we went-
session, so
we
that
went-
stays as is.
If
Is
I
that
may, we
correct?
went into closed session to have legal advice. Part of what legal advice is at times is the factual basis, and I think that's what two of the administrators provided in terms of the legal points I was making.
And that has to remain because it was discussed in executive session.
Well, I think the point is it's been addressed with the
It's
board.
already been
It's been
addressed, it's
addressed.
already been
So
cleared.
number 9 is a non-issue at this point on legal counsel and what occurred in executive session.
correct, and everybody was in agreement, and we came back and took.
Okay, if I may, the only thing that I'm not in agreement, it looks kind of, I don't know, weird that, because it's something that, it's public funds, public monies, and you were just gonna make a presentation for the current depository contract, something simple, so I'm a little uncomfortable because it looks like there's something that we're trying not to share, and that's not the case at all. Am I correct?
Well, I'd like to clarify, before we start sensationalizing things again,
I am
we're
not.
not trying to cover up anything. Legal counsel just made a brief presentation saying that we abided by the procurement process, everything was done correct, proper, and legal. Therefore, to assume that we're trying to cover something up is to sensationalize something that doesn't exist.
Okay, I am not sensationalizing. Maybe what I can say is that if anybody wants any of the information, this information is public record. They can just merely come and ask Dr. Montoya or the CFO to get a copy of it, and this is public record, and they can hand it to them, and then they can analyze it for themselves. I was just a little more concerned about you having to explain it instead of people trying to figure out what it means. But they can come and ask for it because it's all public record. So no, we're not. I'm not.
Point
no.
well taken. Madam President, announcements?
Yes, we now go to announcements. So, Dr. Montoya, we go to.
In the only announcement, since the board approved no board meeting July 5th because of the holiday with people on vacation, the next board meeting will be held on July 19th. Also a reminder that this Thursday we'll have the specially called board meeting to approve the budget and the tax rate, and that's it, ma'am.
That is correct. And also, just let me interject there, Dr. Montoya, that we might be having a special call board meeting.
That's correct. I'm
As to
sorry.
the following week or so, and we'll, the forensic.
forensic
to-
audit, that's
To hire
correct.
and see who's the one that is recommended. And I guess it'll be something that we'll call Ms. Perez will call everyone to see if they're available, so like that we can
We'll
make sure
get
we
back
can have
up on
it.
that, I'm sure.
And we'll get back up, yes.
And ma'am, closing, Madam President, board members, if anyone needs a copy of that information, I'll work with Mr. Garcia to release it. It is public information. So if anybody needs that part of the packet, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Montoya.
I
To,
move to adjourn.
This meeting is now adjourned. Motion by
You don't have to move, you just.
Motion by Dr. Escobedo. Do I have a second? Second by
Everybody.
Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor? Aye.
Good night, Brownsville.
It's now 9:30.
July, Brownsville.
Enjoy that long weekend to come.
There's only a few factors that go into your costs, and you've got your provider contracts, and there's only so far you're going to be able to ratchet those down. You've got your utilization, and I know there's some information in the presentation tonight, which